Okay, so today is going to be only my third webcam stream of this whole channel because I haven't really had any occasion to use it. So that's like since 2021, been like over 2 years. Because of course I don't do face cam, and we all know my position on that. How cult of personality, and I criticize it, and what does that have to do with anything, and all that. But here we had an urge this week to do it in chess, so I got this shitty little webcam for $20, whatever, from Walmart, just to do chess, so I could show the board like while playing a classical game. But then I figured while doing that, I may as well take the advantage to show like, oh, we could do some other things with it too. So we could, I was joking like we could solve a Rubik's cube or whatever. Things like that would actually have some potential relevance or value. So here I've had this Kindle Scribe sitting around for a while. I can't remember, maybe about a year or so. And so I figured, okay, we may as well try. We can kind of show it off, and we get to just kind of whatever, see what it's about. I used it a little bit, and one feature I was disappointed with about it is that you're supposed to be able to take notes. Like, I guess I could show you, but it might not be super clear. This webcam's not that good. There was kind of a glare when I went to go look at it before. Basically, you open it, there's all these images on the title screen as like a whatever, just because I don't want to show that, because then you have to put in your passcode. But now it's like it's going to somehow dox me because I don't know what's even on here. But you go into a book and you can like write a note on it, right? But a lot of books, maybe they've updated it or they've changed it, but a lot of them you have to put the note as like a icon in there. I'll show you in a second, but and then you have to go inside of the note. You can't just write over the book. And you might think, oh well, how could you do that? But that's the whole point of it. You could do that in a real book. Just take a fucking pen and write on it, and it's yours. So who really cares, right? You might ruin it or whatever, but it's fine. So here the problem is that you have to create like a sticky note thing inside of it, and then you click on the sticky note, and then you go inside to write it. So that's kind of dumb. But no, this could almost encourage you to do like a like my old writing streams that harkens back to that. And I wouldn't do that in this form, obviously, or even with a piece of paper. I would just do it in a Word document, that kind of thing, like typing stream. But, creative writing and doing short stories and talking about some of my old ones that I've written, obviously, in real life and stuff like that. So that was always fun. A little anonymous author series. This is like almost a decade ago that we're talking about. And then the Court of Reason, the debate format. So these are all the kind of things I used to do that I haven't really had the motivation to do as much here. And maybe I won't blame like, oh, it's this day and age that everybody's so cynical and reactionary and stuff like that you can't do kind of different things like this. Of course you still can, but it's just different. I don't know. But no, this might encourage me to do something like that again. Like, I want to see what would I actually do with this, because like there's basically only a few things you can do, obviously, as the name would suggest. And this is like, oh, it's a somehow sponsored stream by Amazon because I'm promoting their product, but obviously it's not. It's just like it is Amazon Kindle Scribe, right? So Twitch is Amazon. A lot of fucking things are Amazon, though, to be fair. So the point is that you can basically write on it. You can basically read on it or do books, and then there is like a shitty web browser. But like, yeah, there's really not a whole lot else to do with it. I mean, and it uses like some really shitty whatever this operating system is, where like if you it looks so, I mean, again, it's meant to be like paper, so like, oh, you're writing on it, but why not just buy an actual piece of paper? What the fuck happened? Already broken. Why did it go off? And if I actually have to touch it with my hand, wait, what actually happened? Oh, for fuck's sake, are you serious? No, but the point is that I don't know what I even did. I wasn't even trying to click anything. It's like, what, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I've seen other things like this too. I can't remember the name of it. Some ad for a note, certain special note thing I saw, where it's like, oh, it's like digital paper, and that's cool. This will be what saves the trees and saves the planet, right? Spend $500. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was like closer to 300. Like every year I'll treat myself to one, because I'm not like, oh, I don't go out partying and doing all that kind of shit. So whatever I do, like I'll every year I'll treat myself to like one random thing like this. One year it'll be the Switch, one year it'll be the PS5, one year it'll be this. So that's fine, right? It's not that bad or expensive when you look at it in that context. But the problem is that I never end up fucking using any of them, whether it be in the context of streaming purposes or even just whatever. Like normally, even if I wasn't streaming, I would just, how much would I have I used the Switch since I got it? Pretty much not at all. And I've had it since almost like it came out. I got it like a month after it came out, just because I first didn't want it, then I decided as soon as it came out I did want it, then I had to go on Craigslist to get it. Like all these kind of weird roundabout ways that you just want it and then you never end up actually using it. yeah, this is at least a bit of a unique form of content. I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't be able to do this. Like, whatever. I'm still trying to brainstorm ideas like what else we could do with it. But no, here we would again do like a little mini writing thing. We have the ability to show the whatever little casing that it came in, and then we have the little pen that's like so yeah, the screen might not be super clear, but that's part of the fact that the screen itself it runs on some very primitive sort of operating system. Like I said, I don't know what it is. You would see that maybe more with the web browser if you could go here, and if you go there, right, it's like very, very crappy. Like your phone is going to be a million times better than this. So I actually got a couple of books on here. Now we could turn it into an ASMR book reading stream, or even like, you know, the way that people do React content, like, oh, they're reacting to videos. We could react to a book and just do it. Yeah, it even gives you a warning. This is going to be a shitty browser. But the point is that the same way that we do, the same way that we do. Wait, there's 1,000 people currently reading. The problem with this is I can barely see my own screen because of the angle that's at. So I would almost need something on my computer to show me what's on my webcam, but I can't see it in OBS because then it does that inception thing. So certainly this is both rusty in terms of the setup is not very good, but also even my knowledge of doing this is not very good. But no, what you could do, yeah, I could use this to study chess because I hate doing it in the course of actually playing chess or streaming chess. Make an exception and just do it on a fucking Kindle for some random reason. Yeah, like how would I even be able to read this? I guess I could make it like super big, but then it'll seem too big maybe on screen. But no, the point with this is that it's not the greatest operating system, and I guess that's a trade-off to try to get it to work as sort of virtual paper. But no, you could do almost React reading streams, even though you'll get in trouble for, you know, copyright books and you can't show stuff like that. And if it's something you have to buy, it's probably not public domain. But the purpose here is like you wouldn't even have to read the whole book. You could just look at a couple of pages or chapters or whatever. But no, rather than reacting to videos like people do, oh, scary videos or TikToks or compilations or whatever stupid form of content there is there, you could react to a book and like analyze it in deep detail the way that, you know, I almost was thinking about doing that with movie reactions. Like, okay, since I used to review movies and stuff like that, it is kind of fun to like go super deep and into detail about it. Not like reactions at all, though, where that's more just, you know, very surface level, lowest common denominator, whatever. This would be more like you're actually giving analysis and like, oh, let's predict it's some murder mystery and you're predicting who the killer is going to be and stuff like that. But that is a fun form of content, but I feel like you wouldn't almost be able to do it. You can't read the whole book or show the whole book unless it's something that's like public domain, which I think a lot of the stuff might not be, or there might be a special category to try to find it. So I think the two that I had gotten on here, if I can get out of that, it's sometimes annoying to go back to the home screen because it'll like, let's see, this is all, oh, you know, it's gonna say a name on there that's not actually my real name either, but whatever, we'll just role play, because why would I do that? How the fuck do you do this even? I guess because I'm wearing my glove, it's not going to work. All I'm trying to do is get out of this fucking screen. This will be part of the web browser. I genuinely don't even know how to do this. Hang on. This is like, what do you call it? What do you call it? It's like a fucking, I have many names. Some people call me the human calculator, like from chess, or the elitist victim blamer. You really think I would use my real fucking name on this shit, dude? Even like, oh, Amazon, I don't want Amazon to have my information. Also, I'm streaming on Twitch. But no, it's like showing your house too. Okay, so the point is that we got a couple books here. I think one of them was, or did I even get that one? Maybe I was thinking about it. We'll read through Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess and get banned for that, for showing copyright content. So again, either you could look for public domain stuff, or you could try to still react or read to something else, or analyze it. It'll take me the whole stream to like read through one page because I'll analyze it in such great detail. Or more to the point, you would just look at the notebooks function. No, that was the main shame of it, is that they don't let you actually write on the books themselves. I guess I could show it at least to that extent. We got Hellbound Heart, which is what Hellraiser was based on, just because I had seen that around the time, or I'd seen it again. I think I'd seen it before that, but I'd seen it again around the time. I'll just show it like briefly, like I'm not actually going to show. Imagine if you got in trouble for this, for all the video stuff that people do. reacting to videos and whatnot. But the point is that you're basically in a position where I got this because I just recently seen that again, and I was just kind of wanted to see the source material, and I still haven't read it, but it's not even a good movie, but it just has like an interesting subject matter, like a Lovecraftian vibe with respect to the Cenobites, like these otherworldly creatures. You open some puzzle box and they come out, and it has some of the most iconic lines based on that. A lot of which I've used for my chess titles, like, oh, some kind of a the box you opened it, we came, or what are some of the other ones? We're explorers from a further region of experience, demons to some, angels to others. Like, the Cenobites appear for that one major scene, basically. That's their main screen time in the movie. And they drop like a million badass lines in the process. Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. So yeah, what were my chess? See, this is what I could do. Now I could write out the chess titles that are inspired by those. We can plagiarize Clive Barker right here on the spot. And there was some tagline for an ad of the movie that was like Stephen King saying, oh, I've seen the future of horror, and his name is Clive Barker, and it's like, I don't know what else he did besides this, but I don't know if he lived up to that sort of faith. One hack teaching another, one hack praising another, right? Stephen King, the clown. But I mean, all his movies are kind of failures because the ending is always so stupid. It's like, oh, it with the clown, and it's so scary, it's so cool, and then all of a sudden he turns into a big fucking spider. Like, I don't know how it plays out in the book, but I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be a particularly satisfying ending. So here you can go back. For some reason I couldn't do it on that other page. But no, we're not actually going to read it or show it unless I can figure out some sort of public domain capability here. The big problem with the setup is I cannot figure out for the life of me, unless you can like zoom in a little bit to the extent that, or yeah, I'll get banned for using a fake name on here, but who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe I changed my name. The point is that people are going to try to dox the shit out of you, but I'm always careful about that. Even though I wasn't showing it on stream, that's next level, right? Even though I hadn't thought of it like that, because I didn't know whether it'd show that or not, or I didn't even remember what I put on here, I still wouldn't necessarily do that. But what the fuck is the... What was I trying to do? I was trying to... Oh yeah, I was trying to like zoom in. Is there a way to do that? Let me see. Maybe I have to use it. It's hard to know whether stuff isn't interacting because of the glove element. This is such a weird form of thing to do, but it doesn't seem that weird by today's standards, right? This is just the way of the world in this day and age. In fact, this is kind of light work by comparison. Yeah, you could look specifically for a category of like public domain books and then go through it that way. Let's just fuck around with this actually though. We'll make a new thing here. Create notebook, create folder. Doesn't really matter about that. So let's just go into writing something. So now the problem is the angle also isn't going to work because you can see how I'm stretching, but it's almost like I'd write it at an angle, so it doesn't... Actually, that kind of makes sense though, doesn't it? Like, it should be pretty conducive to do it this way because this might be more comfortable for you to write sort of horizontally like this. So now I would do... Or I could just do it and then show it later. Like, it's going to be hard to show it as I'm writing it. So... I'll just write like upside down. So I said, and my writing's not going to be the greatest here either. Or somebody could dox you based on that, but I whatever, can write in some deliberate fashion that's going to be indecipherable. So like, yeah, let me write some of those chess titles. I'll just show off some of mine. Like, I don't know why, like top 10 chess titles. I can't fucking figure out how to do this actually at the angle that I want. It's actually going to be impossible. Like, I'd have to do it like this. Top chess titles. Right, so you get an idea. I can't really tell how good it looks on there either because it's too... When you're looking at it on your phone or on OBS, it's going to be kind of more narrow. Like, you have... This is one of my favorites for sure. I haven't been this excited for... Or no, that's not actually it. It was no one has said this is like, but see, even that's my writing spirit coming out, that I always try to make a point to come up with like these creative titles or references or funny jokes or whatever. So over the years, I've had some pretty good titles that I come up with. Some of them even like some internal RP that I'm doing. No one has said Goodbye Horses. Of course, the song by Q Lazarus. Goodbye. I can't fucking write. Whatever. Horses. Since that Q Lazarus fuck song. So that is a great joke because it's like, first of all, I hate knights and hate horses in the first place in the game, in the context of the game of chess. But you're also looking at it from a perspective of, we're gonna analyze my own Twitch titles and how I come up with all these random things. It's like you're just, on one hand you're saying you're so bad that you're gonna say, oh, goodbye to your horses so many times, goodbye to your knights, as a piece. Now let's see how easy it is to, like, let's say you want to go to the next page. How do you do that? Okay, like that. But see, this is the infinite nature of it. I don't have to flip through a book, or I don't have to waste paper. Not that that's that big of a deal. Imagine how much fucking paper you could have bought, enough to use in a lifetime, for how much this costs. So in a way, you're sort of trivializing it. It's just the gimmick of it. It's cool. It's kind of like you could do the same thing, take notes on your phone. It just looks bad because the software running on it, right, is going to be lower caliber by far than what's even on your ordinary phone, like even my shitty phone. I guess I could show off stuff like that too. Oh, I got a new iPhone, even though I don't keep up with stuff like that, and I don't have like a good phone because I don't really care to use it. So the angle is going to be a little bit off, but there's really not much we can do about that for now. I can't think of how this angle would work. How am I supposed to sit like in a writing position if I'm showing it at the same time? I don't have a stand for this. I don't have a stand for the webcam. Like, this is a scuffed setup. Let me try to think of some other interesting. I could, you know what? I was thinking about this one. Yeah, let's do a random characterization here. There's this character in Path of Exile called Arol, like Arol. That was actually, and that just reminded me of it as I was watching through my video that I uploaded of it like in October or something. And like that was one of my classic RP character names, just by chance, whatever. One of the characters in there is that. So yeah, let's do a character profile on this. So when I say it, it's like, okay, there were specific short stories in which he appeared, but it also works as an archetype. So this is actually, speaking of copyright content, this is my copyright content right here. This is my short story character template, right? So you could do like a profile on him where there's a couple different distinctions to him and what he's supposed to represent. And there's a couple actually controversial moments for him, but again, it's all just in a fictional context. So let's try to give the profile, okay? So this guy is, and this could work both specifically within one story, or it could work in the context of, again, using him sort of as a template for like an in-character RP style, sort of like the elitist victim blamer mentality, potentially, which I've been called that at times too. But again, that's something you play into. Fuck, that's the leader. But no, he's an example of meritocracy in sort of a hyper form. The idea that he's very capable, very accomplished, so nobody can question him. So he's, let's put it in this context, he's the world's first trillionaire. I wasn't planning on doing this exactly, but whatever, we can come up with, right. So he's the world's first trillionaire. He cured cancer. He created renewable. What the fuck is that? Why was it like my pen's leaking or something? Renewable energy. And he also, what's something else? Terraformed Mars, right? Or whatever, a planet, if it's in some other hypothetical universe. So he didn't do one of these things, he did all of them. So now you're like, oh wow, this guy is like, royalty. You can't really question him. Not just that he's rich, but like everybody, if he runs for office, it's like, wow, he can run on his accomplishments. Or if he, whatever he does, it's like he's too valuable and too important. So everybody wants to sort of share in his greatness and success. So in other words, he gets away with being this way because of those accomplishments. So if you go into it a little further, you look at, there's this one classic scene with him as sort of the character defining scene in which he's at a table with all the world leaders, and they're having some conference about some issue that's going on, right? Some major conflict. I can't remember exactly, some decision that he's invited to play a role, because again, of his significance, he's not a political figure, but he's just so successful and so accomplished, and he's talking shit to everybody there. And you might think, how can you do that? These are presidents, these are world leaders, these are even dictators, whatever, everybody in there. How can he talk shit to all of them like that? And they have to just sit there and take it because they need his help and because he's just that capable. I guess you could see some elements of this in like other certain, like, oh, Tony Stark, oh, they need him to make the Iron Man suit so that he can get away with being a dick to somebody if he wants, maybe to some extent. But this is to take that even to a further extreme, like, you've accomplished yourself what so many other people combined couldn't do, and so therefore it gives you free reign to sort of do that. Like, you can be a dick, you can get away with it, you can talk shit to the world leaders. So that's sort of the main iconic scene of his. And what other instances would there be? Like, he's always like sort of an X factor. The idea that he's like, there's these two major nations fighting, and he ends up being the the one who makes the difference. He's not going to be the the military force himself, but like, oh, he'll decide to take sides with the one nation, and that makes the defining difference when they're evenly matched. Or he would be some sort of a whatever. He can dictate so many other factors. He can, everybody's sort of vying for his approval, or they want to be on his good side, kind of, because he has that ability to tip the scales. Or like, no matter who wins the war, he's the one who's going to be supplying the thing, or he's going to be behind the scenes. He always wins, kind of. So there's that element. What else is there? And it's the sort of thing that would also fly in the face of like, oh, rich entitlement. The idea that, oh, this is a good way to do it, I guess. He's like, rather than writing a story, I'm just going through a character who's appeared in stories of mine. But that is so random that a game actually stole my character's name, which, again, it's just a random fucking name, but still. Let's see, his X Factor quality. So again, like two big nations are fighting over the course of the story, and then towards the end, he's the one who makes the big difference because he's able to, somebody wins him over. He might be very cynical and he doesn't care about things like that. He's not taking a moral stance, but it's all just, there's some line to do with that, actually. Let me think. This is one of his lines. He's like, something to show like, oh, it's not morality that's defining in a situation, it's just ability. Like, no matter what you, like, some character says to him, oh, what that nation is, like, they're trying to convince him, right? So nation A says to nation B, I should be writing this stuff as I go, but whatever. Like, nation A says to nation B about nation B to him, like, oh, but they're wrong, they're doing this evil thing, this and that. And he's like, you may be right, or I accept, even if you accept your premise. He said something very specific, I can't remember it, like, but they still have more guns, or they still have more weapons. So in other words, that'll be the defining factor. Or, oh, their general's better than yours. So that's what's going to determine the outcome, not, right, who has the moral high ground. It's who actually has more resources and who's more capable, right? So power as a defining factor, basically Machiavellian perspective, or some kind of a Darwinistic perspective. That wasn't the line, though. There's a particular line. I fucking can't remember. I got to go through like I do have like a lot of my old text documents and shit for stuff that I wrote. Or what I did the other time, like a year ago or something, was I went through all my terms from the Court of Reason. So you could almost do it here that way too. I wish you could like put this at an angle where it would be straight, because you can't really let me try to remember this line, but then we can go in some other scenes or scenarios about it. Yeah, let's just make it all about one fucking thing, or I'll segue into something else when I'm not sure. But yeah, he's highly accomplished to the point where he can get away with doing things, obviously, that the ordinary person couldn't. But it's also this sort of stark meritocracy element that you'd be in a position where it's not even like, oh, his parent was rich, or something like that. Like, he would be self-made, or to whatever extent, he goes way beyond whatever that influence could have helped him anyway. So you can't even really discredit him like that. Like, oh, he's a rich, evil guy or something, but he's also, self-accomplished. So what else? And he's done so many good things. Oh, he's cured cancer. So how can you question that? And it's to imply like not even, oh, his money and infrastructure has done it. No, like he personally put on a lab coat and fucking did it. He personally is like the innovator behind these things, right? So that gives him even more credibility in that regard. I really cannot write straight though. You should be able to rotate the screen in this way. I guess you could rotate it like this. So I don't know how straight that would really appear to the camera. It's hard for me to really see. whatever. But no, I mean, doesn't this look just like writing with a pen? But then, yeah, and it makes you question why this is even important to do. This could be good if you want to do a drawing sort of stream if you're actually artistically skilled, but that you can still do in a computer program or some better thing for this. They'll make a separate one that has to do with making art, right, as opposed to writing, like as if you couldn't do them both in one functionality. This is just me like reveling in look at the money or time or effort I wasted on the webcam to set this up, so I may as well do something else with it. And look at the money that I wasted on this random thing in the past. So I'm showing off two acts of stupidity combined with each other. But no, what was this line? Hang on. This is the problem. I'm not as sharp or on point as I used to be. I can't even remember the line, let alone come up with this stuff on the spot the way I used to be able to. It was basically a line that said, or here's a good thing. If you could go back, here, I'll just write it. I won't even say it. Go back, or I will say it too. And in time, right? This is like his way of thinking. He doesn't necessarily say this exact thing, but you could see how in an archetypal sense he could, right? If you can go back in time to, let's just say, okay, Native Americans or whatever, just a native population that was imperialized and killed and whatever by some, basically killed by invaders, right? A native population. Would you, and then we'll do it on the next page, I guess, because I can't fit it on there. Takes a second. Would you A or B, right? Tell them big bad invader, and in that case you could say, okay, Europeans or whatever are coming, the English are coming. So like you would go back in time to tell them, oh, give them fair warning. Or would you show them how to make gunpowder, for example? In other words, the moral argument, oh, these big bad people are coming to get you and they're going to kill you and take your land and all this stuff, that might be true and that might be a correct position, but it's like that won't do anything. So in other words, he's showing like, oh, morality is useless in this way, just ability is defining or technology is defining. So show them how to make gunpowder so then they'd have a better fighting chance, something like that. Or there are kind of other examples of that same ideology, this sort of harsh, stark meritocracy that you go into where, you know, ability is defining, don't worry about, let me think of another example. Like, I try to always use hypotheticals because people always take it out of context or get offended or something, but it doesn't matter. So like nation A versus nation B here, right? I think the main problem with this is just the angle of it is not exactly what it should be. It just, I can't figure out how to write and do it at the same time. Maybe at like a slight angle. Like nation A, let's say, is evil. Nation B, let's say, is good. But his advice or his perspective would be the evil one will maybe outlast the other one. And the reason why is because, oh, they're willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead, whereas the other one is deliberately holding themselves back. Like, oh, you know, nation A uses, I shouldn't even fucking give examples in the same. They use like they do something that's not considered good, right? And so if you're not doing something that's considered good, you can get away with, oh, we're more productive, we're more efficient, we're Machiavellian, whatever, but we're not holding ourselves back, right? So fine, I'll say it. Like, okay, nation A is, let's say, China, and they're using child labor, and nation B is the United States, and they're not. So in the long run, right, something like that might benefit them, and they'll outlast you because of it. Even if you want to say, oh, well, they're morally wrong for doing it, it's still more efficient. So that might end up helping them, or they have like less moral qualms about doing certain extreme things, right? So from a strictly functionalistic standpoint, that would work, right? It's the power, it's the effectiveness that's defining. Really, the glove, yeah, we're gonna do that. What if they're both evil or both good? Yeah, this is just like me doing random stuff, like a writing stream to try this thing out, which unfortunately there's not that much. If they're both evil or both good, well, then it would still be defining. Like, then it would still come down to the technology, but I guess it makes less of a difference then. But no, like when people try to look at it from that perspective, like, yeah, Ukraine versus Russia, the defining factor is still going to be Russia has a stronger military. That's why obviously so many people are helping Ukraine. What else? Try to think of some of the other quotes to do with him. or this would be a good way to like study chess and study notation. Let me try to learn. Everything comes back to chess. Let me try to fill in notation like it's a puzzle, right? We'll make like an 8x8 board. I'm probably going to be wrong with this dimension. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is like very free form that you can do a lot of things with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fuck, it's not going to be big enough. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. They're not going to be big enough now, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so the 8x8 board. This is like it's like a virtual paper kind of thing. Like you can write on it digitally with a pen. I was pointing out that the moralistic clause of good versus evil is a flawed premise to begin with and misleading. Well, yeah, but it's posing that as a hypothetical. Like just if someone is asserting that, like what under whatever premise or definition you're using, right? The one that's willing to go to more extremes and not limit themselves by their own standard of morality, whatever it might be, is arguably going to get farther and last longer. So whoever, yeah, maybe that was more so the expression. Let's do the chessboard later. It was something like this. If the thing can actually fucking move. Sometimes it's slow at doing that, or maybe it is the glove that's holding it back. Can you just, okay, here we go. It's like the, let's see, the one willing to go to extremes will outlive the other and then be able, this is like how imperialism becomes self-righteousness over time, right? Like there's some other expression like that too, like, oh, you built your empire on the graves of whatever, the people you conquered, and then now you want to act like you're all morally righteous and self-gratifying, then be able to do, let's say, moral good or something. Then they'll be in a position. But if they didn't do that, like they try good to begin with in the first place, then they would fall to the one who is extreme other nation, whatever. This is not the best writing, but that's the point. So they would be conquered or fall to them in the first place. So first you have to be, let's say in this premise, you have to be incorrect by that standard just to get to the point where you live long enough to be able to see yourself become the villain. No, live long enough to see yourself become the hero then. That way you're able to be in that position, because if you weren't, then you'll just be conquered by somebody else who is willing to do the same thing. Or let's try to go back to the chessboard now. It's like very small. It could be something with the camera. Okay, so let's try to learn the notation element, right? So we'll write a few things to do with, let me try to fill it in first. So you got ladies first, which means that the queen is going to appear on the left side of the board. Right, so you already know then that this is the queen, right? Just in basic setup. Then you also have white before black. They move before black. So therefore you have the fact that one is going to be on the bottom, right? Now the one thing I'm not sure about is necessarily the A and the H. I feel like A is also on the queen side, so that would also correspond to the lady's first idea. So the queen is on the left side of the board. In other words, it comes first from left to right before the king. And then also A is going to be with white because white comes first. And then also 1 is also, so obviously everything is favoring white. The first letter comes with white. The first number comes with white. And so the queenside rook. Why is it the queenside rook? That's 1, is because, again, ladies first in both senses. So the A is going to go with the queen side, and the 1 is going to go with the queen side. And then white also dictates that it goes first. So based on that premise alone, these little Spanish teacher sort of tips that you would hear, you'd be able to figure out the whole rest of the notation based on that. Right? So now you know this is A2, 3, you get it to 8. Then this is H, everything else filled in. Obviously, the placement of the pieces is not exactly, I'll put an H for horse, just because that's what it should be, actually. Or I just shouldn't even put it all, because it's so garbage. Now, obviously, you have the pawns, like all this stuff. So all you need is like one point of reference to work with, right? And then everything else kind of takes care of itself. And you probably can't see it super well. That's the annoying thing about this. That's not really a fault of the thing. It's just more so a fault of my setup. Like I can't really figure out how to do it otherwise because I can't really write at that angle, so I have to keep changing it. So what else would you need to know from this? Like, so the white queenside rook is going to be A1. So this will be H8. Imagine if I'm doing this and I'm actually wrong about something, but I'm pretty sure it's correct. Because the H file is always where I'm afraid, like, oh, don't open the rook to your H file because then they'll just mate your dumbass. This is the instructive sort of test content that we really got to do. What else can we do here? I should have like some sort of itinerary that I'm planning to go through if I'm going to do this, but it is just sort of doing it as a gimmick. Like, let's just try this fucking thing out, and maybe we'll have some occasion to use it in the future. I mean, it's the same thing as like, oh, I would do it on a text document, but maybe this is just maybe more visually fun or something. We went through that character profile. I guess I could do some other ones of that, or what else could I do? I could just like go into like some sort of debate subject, or analyze some random thing. I don't know. So it's just like a visual aid or visual reference, but it's still effectively like, oh, it's just like a just chatting random fucking thing. So let me think. We could do I don't know. I need like a catalog of like topics or something to go into. This is why the debate format was good, because that would always give you a fresh supply of that, and a lot of the time I would even just be moderating it, so I wouldn't even always participate myself. Let me think. How about the 2024 election? So, okay, here's a good thing. Joe Biden, let's look at this objectively. Right? 81 million. This is a fallacy of like the worst leaders in history. I got a million fucking quotes over the years from all my writing. The worst leaders in history are a result of voting against rather than for someone. So the point here is they were voting against, oh, Trump is the big bad guy and this and that. So they voted blindly. Again, if you want to not vote for him, don't vote for him. Fine, nobody's telling you to. But then instead, not only do you not vote for him, not only do you vote for someone else blindly by default as a result, but you also don't even do the wise thing, which would have been, okay, let's 81 million of us, let's vote for an independent, then let's vote for Joe Jorgensen, let's vote for somebody else, right? At least break the mold. But no, I'll instead mindlessly vote for the other dominant political party and somebody who's been in politics for decades, who nobody's liked. So here's one good way to disqualify that, right? Like, oh, 81 million, right, votes. So he had run twice before and not gotten anywhere near that, and not the candidate. So now all of a sudden that proves that they were not voting for him but against him, because if he was that strong of a candidate, why was his performance in the other two so bad? So that shows you, okay, they're voting against, and then once you realize they're voting against, this is where you don't have to worry about the space. Like, we're just using like fucking sticky notes. So you're voting against the other guy mindlessly, which again, the real solution is there's no such thing as voting against. Just don't vote for the guy you don't like, but then try to vote for somebody you actually have conviction in, instead of just mindlessly doing the opposite. Please look at Discord. I can't really look at it now because I don't have my setup like that. See the chessboard in the background? Do you? How? I can't even see it. Oh, it might be like very faint. Also, America and the world is fucked if Trump. Yeah, see, people say that, but I think it's fucked even as it is now, and it's not a false duality. Then, like I was just saying, vote for an independent or vote for somebody else, but it turns into this false duality, like you only have one of two options. So the other point is, let's think about how else we can disqualify that. So we had run before, it never got nearly that many votes. That also shows you the corporate media influence in two senses. This is sort of a false duality. False duality. What it would show you is both Trump got more votes the second time he ran, even though he lost. We'll go into absolutist speak where we don't have to write the whole thing out. normally you would win in that scenario, right? Like, for example, Obama won with less the second time. This is an example. With less second time. So that's an anomaly. So what was this difference, right? Somebody who never got, even was the candidate before, got 81 million, and their opponent got more. So what does that feed into? It's the same process. More people voted for him. Why? Because they felt like, oh, the media is taking a side, so therefore we're going to sort of spite the media or whatever, the corporate structure, power structure, etc. So we're going to spite them by voting for him despite them telling us not to. Whereas if they just ignored him and treated him like a normal candidate, that wouldn't have happened, right? Oh, he's just a regular president. There have been plenty of bad presidents before. But no, instead they keep insisting upon it. So that creates both tendencies. More people voted here because they're doing what the media is telling them, let's say, but more people also voted here because they're trying to do the opposite of what the media is telling them. So in both cases, both defined by media influence. So it doesn't matter about what the outcome is. It matters about, again, more people. You would think that, well, why is all this negative coverage of Trump causing more people to vote for him? But this is the point that people don't get, that it actually does. How is your setup then? Top left of screen. Yeah, I see it now. It's like really fucked up. I can't really explain it. The webcam is sitting on something, so I can't really move anything. I guess I can try to look at it. Hang on. He made me check Discord just to see some pictures of fucking Australian spiders. So now we, yeah, Australia is the new Ohio. Let's go. I still don't even know why that meme started, but it was around when you kept hearing about that whole train accident happened, so that almost felt like it was in poor taste. And they were huntsmen. Does that mean they hunt men because they look almost big enough like they could? So let's do this one. This is a good debate point. Will Chamberlain, so when people say, oh, discredited because of era, like, oh, everybody's a plumber or a firefighter. I should just write as I talk because it doesn't matter. Yeah, who needs captions when you have this? Everyone's a plumber or a firefighter. But again, like, so that would apply to him too. So the fact that he was a world-class athlete at that time would be to his credit. Everyone tries to discredit him because of the era, but what you're really doing is discrediting the whole era. And if you do that, then you're in a position where you're still relatively better because you can only measure someone in any era. I don't know why it's doing that. It creates a smudge like, oh, you erased it like real paper, which is kind of both cool and weird at the same time because it's obviously not real paper. Only measure someone against their peers, right? So in any era, you can always say that. So that's an equalizing factor. So you say like, oh, nobody else even averaged 40 a game, but he did 50 a game. Right, so that shows you he's head and shoulders above everyone else. You don't get to discredit it. Let me think about how people would qualify it. Like, okay, so what was worse at that time? We could say disadvantages and advantages. So the disadvantages would be what? No. Disadvantages would be, okay, poor nutrition. I can't fucking write. Lack of money, worse shoes, things like that, worse medicine and recovery from injuries, worse knowledge of whatever the game or certain things that would help you now. So all those things that you would have, he was exposed to them too, right? They applied to him as well. And so if they applied to him as well, then how does that discredit him, right? It would discredit the whole era. So everyone's in this supposed weaker era, whatever you want to say, like people in Magic got more athletic. So all the advantages that everybody has now, you're taking for granted. You're taking that like, oh no, they were just like that naturally, everyone today. Just all these things that you would not be the way you are without them over the years, right? All the benefits and advantages you have. Now you're transplanting. So you're saying, let's make somebody today a time traveler and go back there when they were created by the circumstances today and the advantages they had, and then see how they would do against people who didn't have those same advantages. Even then, it's not as extreme of a disqualifier as people say, because it's still sort of a skill game of all things basketball, right? It's at least like where, you're still shooting, you're still, Jerry West could shoot, so he'd still be able to shoot. Like, I don't see why people look at it that way, but even if you don't see it that way, right? do it the other way, then have them come here and benefit from all the advantages you have in I guess you can't even hardly see some of this shit because I guess I can do it and then I can show it. Right, like this is what we're doing. We're giving like a college lecture. So the point is that, yeah, let's go through all what we've written here. I guess that's the right way to do it. You do it and then you show it and then you do it again because it's very hard to do it otherwise. I just have to come up with some more robust setup. We touched on that. Let's see what other kind of subjects we could touch on. I guess this is more fun than at least doing it in some boring old text document, but whether it was worth $300 to do it, and it's not like I did it for this purpose. I just got it randomly because I felt like it. We can look back on all the subjects that we touched on. Let's try to do one from the court of reason. Like, what's something that we talked about there that I always liked? We have, you should be able to rotate this though more freely, like I was saying. I don't know how, or if you can. Just like you could do with a real piece of paper. Like, sure, you can move the whole fucking thing. But I mean, within this, I should be able to, like, you know, put it at a weird angle if I want to. So one of these things is going to be, let me do one debate subject from there. I might do this again on Wednesday, so that'll be my next whatever Wednesday one, is just to fuck around with this a little more. Let's see. I don't like to like have a script or write stuff down, but I at least need some sort of subject basis to go off. I'll make like a list of subjects that I can talk about and then go from there. Let's see. What is one good debate subject in the court of reason itself? I've been starting to, I made a channel just for that. So now every day I'll upload like one little clip of some old excerpt from that. So let me try to think, what did I upload? Like contrivance. What is contrivance? Contrivance is some sort of unnatural or man-made structure, as in not like a physical structure, but like some sort of standard. Okay, so this is a way you have to do things, or you know, a set of rules, set of standards, things like that. So now, what is the pertinence of this as it pertains to, let's apply like a specific subject. So a contrivance response would be like, let me think. Okay, so it would be flying in the face of inherent man. So inherent man, I'm going to need room to fucking define some of these. So contrivance is a very commonly used term in that format. So contrivance response and inherent man. So this would be the tendencies people naturally exhibit, or would exhibit, if you want to qualify like that, in nature without indoctrination, influence of society, etc. Right? So this is how people would naturally be. So contrivance response is a direct reaction to that. So for example, if people would naturally, let me think, like in terms of sex, they would just have sex randomly and with everyone and with no restraint and just kind of do whatever they want. They wouldn't create family systems, or they would just kind of whatever, right? They would do something more primal that way. So now all of a sudden you create certain standards like, okay, love or morality appeal to something. Oh, it's right to be with one person. Cheating is wrong. So what it shows you is, it's not a question of the standard or whether it should be that way or not. At least you're recognizing the reason why people say things like that, or why standards like that would be held, is not because of an inherent state of being, but rather because the inherent state of being is actually the opposite. There's a good way to show this with like superficiality, for example. Let me try to go to the next page. So superficiality is like going to factor in as far as, let's see, the reason why people are apprehensive about something. I'll kind of do some of this in short form. People are apprehensive about whatever it might be. Let's say it's sex or something to do with that. Not because they're above it, right? They're just more sophisticated, but because they're not. In other words, if they didn't put on that front, like, oh, we're too polished for that, or whatever, we'll try to be hard to get, or we'll put some restriction on it. In other words, it reflects that we have to place so much emphasis, whether it be positive or negative emphasis, the idea that you know, oh, it's the right, you know, it's the perfect thing to do it in this form, and it's wrong to do it in that form, and this and that. The fact that you're so concerned with it and placing such emphasis on it, again, whether it be positive or negative, actually shows you that you have to do that, because if you didn't do it, then you're gonna have your inherent tendency otherwise, where you would just do it without discretion or anything. So right, you're creating some sort of duality here where not a question of what you should or shouldn't do or what is right or wrong to do in the situation, but if you're aware of it, then you realize like this reactionary state is not inherent. So for example, a lot of these standards that are held are a reaction to an inherent state of being rather than the inherent one itself. So this goes into the false inherent, another common term, that the reactionary standards, reaction such as contrivance response, I don't know why it keeps blurring like that. Reaction is to inherent tendency is taken as inherent itself. So now you take kind of, this is like, just because you want something to be the case or it's convenient for something to be the case doesn't make it inherently true. So now all of a sudden you're in a position where you know, you take that reaction and now you act like, oh, this is how people inherently are, just because that's the way you think they should be, or society wants them to be, or whatever the case may be. But you're failing to recognize the inherent tendencies. So those inherent tendencies often dictate a lot of conflict people have, sort of the inherent coming out despite all the contrivance against it. And so at least that awareness can certainly be useful to say, it's not that surprising when people do certain things, because that's what they would naturally do, and that's why we create so many barriers against it. Okay, let me think of another subject here. I mean, you can just kind of do this infinitely, or I'm gonna run out of fucking space on here. Actually, if I just keep what are we on, like page 19? This is good for just like going on tangents and random stuff, just chatting, and this is at least a better way of doing just chatting, I guess. But I guess what I would normally do is I would like go on web pages and show stuff, and if only the web browser was better on here. Let's see. But yeah, either you would do that or you could do some sort of art stream with it too. If you had any drawing capability. We went over notation in chess. What else do we have? We could do some sort of chess subject. It's like you have a situation where, or I won't even use that, but I'll use it as a baseline. It's like, if you really want to do something, you commit the time to do it. So then it's like, is it impressive to be good at something if you put so much time, more than people who are worse? So like you're a bottom feeder and you're picking on people like, oh, you know, this 1500 rated player or something like that, right? And then you're in a position where, you know, oh, well, if they played and studied as much as you, they'd be as good as you too or something. And so therefore, you know, you study a board game for 20 years. Imagine not being good at it. You should be good at it. So yes, at the high level, then there's some gradation, like, oh, some people are better than others in the same condition. But at least in this context, you're like, it can be so easily measured that way. So what would be more preferable? Like, would you rather be innate? See, you'd look at it in both senses, a negative. Innately good, but then you discredit that like you didn't work for it, or like reactively good over hard work and stuff. You just, this is why in both senses you can discredit it. You just worked for it. So in other words, if somebody else did, they could do it too. Anyone could. Right? So no matter how you accomplish something, you're still a failure and you still suck by this standard, because, you know, oh, you were born good. You were just born genetically that smart or that athletic or whatever. So that's why you're good. So you didn't work for it. So it doesn't mean anything. Or you reactively studied so much and you trained so much, and that's why you're good. So if anybody reacted or studied or trained that much, right, they could do the same thing. So no matter what you do, it doesn't mean anything. Defeatist sort of rhetoric that might be. Let's see what else. Or you know what, this would be almost good if you were a little bigger streamer, not even like a huge one. Then you'd have a more active chat, and maybe you could go off of those type of things. As far as subjects that people suggest and things like that. And I have that document saved with all the things that people have donated, like, or not donated, but given their channel points, like, oh, discuss this subject. But normally I just discuss it right on the spot. Let's see. What other terms? We touched on that. We touched on some of these things I've discussed so many times over the years too. It's like my go-to, like the Wilt Chamberlain topic, but people still don't get it or they try to argue it. Right? Like let's do, I don't know, NBA bubble thing, right? For whatever reason. It was like everybody played in the bubble. So therefore, it's not a equalizing factor, or it's an equalizing factor in bubble. So they tried to discredit, okay, like let's say, oh, the Lakers won, so it doesn't count, Mickey Mouse ring and things like that. But it would have applied to everyone across the board, and so therefore, it's just kind of it's hard to write as quickly as you talk or as quickly as you think even. So everyone played, so therefore the same thing would apply to everyone else that applied to them. So no matter who win, you discredit it, or right, it's fair for everybody else. Or like there were a few other points there, like it would even hurt you because you had home court advantage, and we saw that like with the Bucks where Bucks lost to the Heat, which again that's happened again too. But I mean that year the Heat were like the 5th seed, and then they make it to the finals partly because home court advantage isn't a factor. So not only would it not have helped you, it would have arguably hurt you if you were a higher seed. Let's see. What's another good topic here? I couldn't really decide what to play today anyway. Like Saturday's normally my format. Pen tapping ASMR. Look at this, dude. ASMR is one of the most broad things you could ever imagine, because anything you can imagine out there, almost like Rule 34, haha, where anything you can imagine, there's going to be a form of it. Just somebody sitting there chewing gum, tapping a pen, just like whatever, moving some basic object, flipping pages in a book. Like, I'm not saying it's even a bad thing, but it's like it can just be kind of random, honestly. Maybe that's a step above or a step below, like just chatting reactionary form of content. Let me think, what else is there? But no, this is a better way to do it. I'll just write it and then I'll show it, because it's very hard to do both at the same time. I don't know how, in fact, I would be expected to be able to do that. You would need the camera at such an angle, like maybe overhead, and then you'd be sitting, because like there's too much shit in my way. I guess I won't even show it, but the table's in front of me, then there's another table to my right with this thing on it, then the webcam is on the table in front of me, so I couldn't really sit facing this otherwise. That was giving me trouble actually when I was playing chess too, because like I had to keep moving the pieces, but they're kind of far away and stuff. Let me try to come up with a few more things here to talk about. Sort of like the reactionary content. Let's look at it this way. Uwu gets, then we'll go into like the Botez effect too. Uwu is like, gets millions of views, whereas something like really well thought out researched subject gets way less, right? So now you're rewarding the wrong thing. So the Botez effect would be like, it's partly her fault at the high level, but it's mostly the fault of viewers, because what you're doing is you're rewarding the wrong thing. You're rewarding sub 2,000 FIDE, top 25,000 in the world. So what it ends up doing is, blame the audience. Don't blame, like it's like with commercial works. Like you have, oh, the blockbuster movie isn't always the best. The ones that make the most money aren't always the best quality. The most popular music, Taylor Swift or whatever, isn't necessarily the highest quality. And so you're rewarding something that isn't like, oh, you're the best chess player in the world, or at least like Hikaru or one of them. So one of the problems here is, the high level criticism that would apply would be like this. It would be, once you, this would be good just to like write out some of my old quotes and stuff like that, if I could remember them or find them. Once you reach X level of success, which again is subjective, but level of success, give the game or whatever caused you to have that success back max effort, so to actually show that you're trying to get better and reach a certain level and things like that. But instead of that, it becomes, oh no, once we reach a level of success, now let's leverage that success to become more successful. So it's just feeding into itself, celebrity culture style thing. So you're not actually giving yourself giving the game the proper respect. So that says more about you then than it does even about the audience or even about the game. It's like some people work that hard even without making that amount of money, even if again it's slightly for different reasons and marketing yourself and cult of personality and things like that we talked about. Even then, right, you've made the success good for you in relation to the game, even if it's only as a prop for you. And so therefore now you're putting yourself in a position where you would put that much effort at least then, the same amount of effort that people put even without making millions of dollars from it. So that's the core criticism, which again is always there's these overly defensive fanboys that want to flame you and get that way, but it doesn't really work. Let's see. Let's look at the quiet ideation that I used to have, right? Where I would always be kind of either whispery, speaking of ASMR, or whatever. I just would talk less. So it's kind of like what you say versus how you say it, or how you say it. So like which of these two, right? People will focus a lot on in society on how something is said and like giving off this sort of vain false certainty or something like that, right? So you focus on, oh, look at the delivery, or look at the emphasis, or look at who's saying it or how they're saying it, and that circumvents what you're saying. The only thing that matters is what the substance of it actually is, but we focus too much on these superficial elements instead. That's kind of like you don't need the emotion or emphasis if you have substance in your words. So it's almost like an overcompensation. So if you have substance, you don't need to be yelling and screaming or passionately saying it. You can just say it and it'll speak for itself. The only reason why you need those things is maybe to compensate for a lack of substance, or to overcompensate and say, well, this is more important than something else, just because, oh, look at how I'm emphasizing it, right? So not only does that not give it credibility, it almost takes it away, that, oh, you have to yell and scream from the rooftops about it, instead of actually doing it in such a way that, again, you don't need to do it. You can be monotone, you can be, very just basic and banal and even boring, but that's because it inherently has value what you're saying, or at least it holds it accountable to that standard. So you're kind of looking at the wrong thing. And then the other element is if it has substance, it's almost like appearances at the expense of reality, to the extent that, okay, a society is like some hypothetical thought experiment thing. Like a society will value appearances and like even at the expense of reality, or they'll value experiences. Like everything has to be dressed up, everything has to be shown and treated in just the proper way, when some sort of substance or foundation is lacking. So in other words, it's some sort of overcompensation, or even in the sense that, even at the expense lacking, even at expense of reality. So it's more important to you to keep up the appearance than it is to actually do something of value and substance. This could be actually another one to do with that character, where like he could be this, world's wealthiest man, first trillionaire, cured cancer, done all these things, but then, oh, he comes in with baggy clothes, or that wasn't really the characterization that I used for him, but still, you could show this point too, like, oh, he's so efficient, but he just looks like he isn't. So that's always like a fake out technique that you see in writing, like, oh, this, like L from Death Note or something, like, oh, he wears baggy clothes and he doesn't wear shoes and whatever, like he doesn't look the part, or he looks kind of like the more mad genius part, but still the substance there is there regardless of how he looks. So that could be like a hiring experiment, right? Person A will be, they'll dress the part, they'll talk the part, but they're not actually good at what they're doing. They just kind of put up the appearance. The other one, oh, comes in, they're dressed in t-shirt, shorts, nothing, that, but then they're actually good at what they do. So which one do you really value? Right, so the appearance is emphasized a little bit too much, or of course there's some sort of middle ground where you would mix it between both of them, where you can still keep up the appearance, but it's not the defining factor. Let's see, what is this quote that's on here? This is like on the box. I kept always 2 books in my pocket, one to read and one to write in. Now you only need one thanks to this new age technology that you totally couldn't just do that anyway. Or yeah, now you would need to keep two of them because you can't write in the fucking book itself. I didn't show like that sticky note effect, but like you can't write in the book itself. Or that's what I was trying to show actually maybe earlier. Where was I trying to get out of this? Oh, here. It is sometimes hard to navigate that. Okay, let's see. We'll go into here and try to write like a note, right? Without actually showing too much of the book or anything. And yeah, this is a skull dead emoji. That's why I bought the fucking thing. But that's supposed to be Pinhead. We have Pinhead at home. Pinhead at home. This fucking skull. Because it's like, obviously that's not really what he looks like. See, now you can put a note. Oh, shit. I'm not really trying to show this, but... Right, you put a note, but then you put the note like... Right, whatever it is, and then you close it. So now you'd have to click on the note again to find it. You can't, I guess maybe this is a little better than it was before, but you shouldn't have to click it. You should just write on the thing, you know what I mean? Write on the book freely as you would be able to do normally without having to actually destroy the book. That would be one of the core selling points of this. So maybe it's something specific to each book itself, or some of them will let you do that, some of them won't, but like, why would it matter? It's not even the physical copy of the book, and it's yours, you bought it. So what do you... I don't really get it. Yeah, look at that. Let's rate the cover. But this must have been obviously before the movie came out. Well, I mean, this cover could have been made like later, but this must be the original cover because otherwise they would have just put the real Pinhead on there from the actual movie. Author of Mr. Begone. Yeah, it would be kind of cool to do some sort of, instead of, again, reacting to videos, you somehow react to books or something, but I don't know how allowable that would be. I'd have to find like a special list of I'd have to find a special list of the fucking of like public domain books and so forth. Let's see a few more subjects that we could do maybe. I had some other notes where I was almost like planning maybe some hypothetical thing. Oh, what could I maybe do with this? And then I never did it because that's from a long time ago. I wonder how somebody would professionally capture this much better. You just have to have the camera like on the roof or something, or above it, or some on an actual stand, or there's so many things you could potentially do with it. Okay, so this is going to be... Let me do a few more subjects, or let me do a few more things to do with that character again. Like, okay, so we've established he can be elitist victim blamer, he can be... And that's not even my term. That was more like a term that was used to describe me at times in certain debates and stuff. And then it just sort of applies to him though anyway. Literally me. What else would he be? He could be like very picky, finicky about certain things. He's sort of arrogant but justified, right? Is it really overconfidence if you're actually, just that good? So what else is there? Like, he sort of doesn't like all the banal pleasantries or certain things like, oh, like just be nice or this or that. It's like, just get shit done. So this is kind of a good thing. You could look at like the Bobby Fischer element, maybe. The idea that, oh, he's crazy, people will say. But he's also a genius at chess. And so you almost think, oh, what we call crazy, it's almost like if we look deeply enough at it, we might realize that we're crazy, like the average person is, because like, how can we be so inefficient and how can we be so bad? So the first thought that you have when somebody who is very successful and very smart in a particular field is to think, oh, they're crazy, instead of, oh, maybe they're onto something, and maybe not even the specifics necessarily of what they say, but just, give them a certain benefit of doubt. Maybe they're onto something rather than saying, oh, let's just discredit them. Maybe they know something we don't, or maybe they're just, again, they're so much above us in a particular way. Doesn't mean they're right about everything, but it could mean that, again, maybe they're seeing something that the ordinary person couldn't. So in the same sense, it's like, how can somebody question him when he's way more efficient than everybody else, right? He's done all these things that people have benefited from even, and he's even... like he's just better than everyone in a lot of ways, so those same people will get to questioning him for what? Like, what else? Yeah, that one just came to mind because that character's name was fucking in there, but I have like a million of these I could do. So there's always like one origin short story, but then there's also Obviously using it sort of as an archetypal way. Let me think. This is harder to do on the spot than you might think, but what else is there? Or I try to make it too much like it has a structure to it. You can just do random shit because that's what people do in this day and age, but again, it becomes more about them than even what they're doing. Let's see. We've done a lot of the go-to subjects that maybe I've done in the just chatting streams anyway. It's going to get to the point where I end up repeating some of these takes even. But let's see. What were some good? Best thing would be to just go through like quotes or something. Like some of my old quotes that would be notable, which I kind of was referring to some of those in that, like some things that he might hypothetically say or things like that. There's like a button on this, which I'm not sure what it does on the pen itself. If you look at it there. Yeah, we should have done like an unboxing stream with it basically. It maybe changes somehow some element of the writing, like it makes it thicker, thinner. Oh, it makes it like that for some reason. Maybe that's why I was smudging before, but why? What does that even mean? Or there's something weird that happens if you try to erase, like, what do you call it? Yeah, it'll erase it, but it'll leave some sort of imprint of it, right? Which is maybe some cool element, like, oh, it shows you something was written there, but you maybe don't want that either. And what if I actually just want to erase it fully? That's again to try to simulate that, oh, it feels like paper. This is like the ripped jeans effect. Oh, I want this thing to look worse just to simulate some sort of other feeling. Yeah, you can still see like a faint outline of what was there. I guess maybe you can't make it out too out here. What else do we have? Let me actually check something. I could go through again like all my stream titles or something like that, or just some other kind of quotes and use that as at least a jumping off point. Imagine doing this much writing even without a script. You need a script for a stream with this much fucking stuff in it. Let's see, I'll go back to like some super old random one. Oh yeah, that woman. This would almost be better to look stuff up then. The woman who took a picture with the bison. What would you say to that? It's like the joke from Street Fighter, right? For her, for me, whatever. For her, this selfie was the most important day of her life. For me, it was Tuesday because obviously the guy's name is Bison in the Street Fighter movie. Right, so for you, the day that Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday. But then it's like, some girl is taking a picture at some zoo or something next to a bison, and the newscasters are horrified, like, oh, she could get gored, she could get killed, but she's just doing it anyway, and the bison's just standing there like he doesn't give a shit. Let's see, what else do we have? There's just so many of these subjects that are maybe overused, like, oh, every time you're going to talk about chess because it's just like that. Injuries are God's way of making it fair for everyone else. I'll make a. That's supposed to be by Kawhi Leonard. Not that he actually said it, but it feels like he could say it. Or my friend always fucking comments these on YouTube videos and like steals them. I don't really care. And it's sort of like a template thing, right? You write something as if the character or as if a person is actually saying it. So, for example, wait, why can't I write now? Oh, because that's the eraser. Right, so you'll say, like, here's a quote. Right, yeah, I'll even write it. Injuries are God's way of making it fair for everyone else. Right, then you would say Kawhi Leonard, or you would even give them, like, a pet name just to make it, like, to show that it's not really them saying it. Like there's a lot of these with Hikaru. You would always do this is something my friend's done a lot. You'll make like some sort of joke quote and then you'll put Daka. So even then it's like you could, even if they're called on it, like someone takes it seriously, you'd be like, oh no, I didn't say Hikaru said it, I said Naka said it, which is just like a pet name, joke name for him basically. So it's not actually him. Let me see. This is a good quote from that little Polgar story we did. Chess is 75% memory. Then the guy asks, what's the other 25% then? Whoever goes first, whoever plays black or white, is black or white. Better than any line in the Queen's Gambit, am I right? Probably a lot of those ones were, because Queen's Gambit was a lot, definitely very overrated anyway. Let's see. What else do we have? I'm going through like some notes on my phone that were like random quotes possibly. A lot of which were not really that good. Let's write another one. It just makes it too slow too. Like I could just as easily read through them. So let's write this one. Those who expect or seek shortcuts. I'll often do that too. Like I'll put a dash and like maybe it'll sound better if I say it like this, whatever, like in some hypothetical sense that I'm writing it. Not that anybody else is seeing this normally, but those who expect shortcuts cut short. This is a good kind of wordplay. Cut short the work needed to succeed. And then what else do we have? Oh yeah, this is a good concept from the Court of Reason too. Let's do anything mass produced suffers inequality for it. This is a commonly referred to concept, especially as it applies to the stimuli acme. So we have anything mass produced suffers inequality as a result. This can apply to products, education, things like that. This would even apply to people. So if all of a sudden, overpopulation, whatever, that people want to talk about, like, oh, there's too many people, or there's 8 billion people. So now all of a sudden, the more that you have, and there's no limit to it, right? So the more and more that you have, more overextended certain elements of life become, or the more everything has to be reduced to that sort of collective structure and overextended again and again. So that's a common concept, at least, that was discussed. Again, it applies even to life. If it was truly being valued in a mass sense, you wouldn't be doing that so flippantly, let's say. Let's see, what else do we have? This is another chess title quote, which I use for something anyway. Maybe a title on YouTube, or I'd probably use it on both. Just some of them are just, you take a quote from something, so it almost seems like you're stealing it, but it's just like a good little riff or joke on it. Or again, a lot of them I just come up with myself. But when your pawns are triple stacked, then you have my permission to resign. Dark Knight Rises was like such a savant kind of movie where it's like Nolan is a genius, but it was also so bad in so many ways. Like the way that Bane dies is disappointing. Then you have my permission to resign. He just dies. Catwoman comes in and just shoots him with the fucking Batmobile or something, and that's it. He just kind of dies off screen, and that's it. There's a lot of anticlimactic villain deaths in there, actually. Like Scarecrow gets hit by a taser in the first movie. Even though he doesn't die, it's still like his defeat. Scarecrow is tased by Rachel. Then Bane is killed off screen with the Batmobile. And then who else? Like, the Joker, I guess, goes to jail, so that's not too bad. Harvey is knocked off of the thing. I feel like there's another one that's pretty disappointing too. Just like some of those things are sort of anticlimactic. And yeah, the Scarecrow actually lives on as in both of the other two movies, so you can almost argue he's the main villain of the whole trilogy, but not really, just like he happens to be a recurring one for whatever reason, because no one likes Cillian Murphy so much because he's obviously was an Oppenheimer too now, but this is a good title also for chess. I am become. I don't know why with chess it's so much easier, or I come up with so many more for that. Just because I play so much of it, I guess. Speaking of Oppenheimer, yeah, this is literally what I intended to do with it. These are serious and high-level creative writing quotes. I am become Vichy Destroyer of Boards, like I am become Death Destroyer of Worlds. Anytime an Indian song comes on while you're playing chess, or anytime, whatever, if you're an Indian player and you're doing well, like one of these other GMs, Prague or somebody. These are some of, I could go through some of my Hunter RP quotes, like from WoW Classic. This is: a hunter has no need of a leash, or no, wait, no need of fangs or a leash if they have a weapon in both hands. So that's like when my pet died, and of course it was permanent pets, then I start dual wielding at like the same time. So it's kind of a good example how RP could work. They're not really forcing it. These are things that naturally just happen. My pet did happen to die. It was permanent pets within the format, and so the problem is, or the thing is that basically, and then I happen to just be about to learn dual wielding anyway. So it kind of is a good way to sort of revel in that in a way that takes it a bit more seriously. Or what was another good quote from that? Like, fear not the barren land, because of course the orcs and the horde are mostly in dry desert areas like the Barrens and Duratar, and even the dead land of Tirisfal Glades and stuff like that. So fear not the barren land, said the horde. This is like a Warcraft RP here. A better line than anything probably in the fucking Warcraft movie, which everybody seemed to hate actually, but I think it still made a decent amount of money. Barren land, said the horde, for it will find nourishment in our sweat, in our hard work basically, or blood in our efforts to fight. So even if we fail to make it work, it's our fault, right? So then we'll die trying. So we'll die here, fighting for survival, or we'll find a way through our hard work to make it happen. So either way, don't blame the land basically for it. And that represents sort of the toughness that maybe the orcs and the horde want to embody, whereas the humans have their cushy little elven forest and their castles and all this kind of cutesy stuff, the beautiful forest of Ashenvale and this kind of thing, even though that's contested and partly filled with orcs anyway. It's just like, it's the idea that the Alliance are kind of getting off to a better, they have like this advantage or this alliance privilege that their zones are just nicer somehow. This is like a little psychology tidbit idea, the treetop fruit ideation. And so this is almost like a placebo effect. The idea that you're able to look at it like you pick up a fruit on a tree. This one maybe justifies drawing somehow. This is incredible. So you have like some fruit on the tree, right? I don't know if you can do colors and stuff with this. Probably not, actually. Because again, sort of the scuffed UI operating system element of it makes it feel very limited in that scope, whether it have to do with the web browser and stuff. But in other words, does the fruit on top of the tree taste better than the ones that fell on the ground, or that are lower on the tree, let's say, on a little swivel, let's say? Right? Does that one taste better, or does it just seem like it tastes better because you had to take the effort to try to climb it to try to get there? So is what you're actually associating with it, the hard work that went into it, makes it taste better, makes it more satisfying. Now you're thirstier or hungrier because of all the work that put in to get there, or even just you're associating psychologically that one with the hard work that went in to get it, so therefore it means more. I've said this like with skins or something in a game, or like a card back, like, oh, the legend card back in Hearthstone maybe looks bad, it looks stupid, but maybe you like it just because you know what went in to get it. So this is why people associate so much value with things that are like just cosmetic or stupid, right? They're valuing their own work or effort or experience associated with it. Not, it could be the exact same fruit. It might even be worse, whatever, right? But just because of that work that you had to climb higher to get it, you had to work harder to get there, that makes it actually more meaningful to you, right? So that can be a very powerful thing. What else do we have? This is like another psychological one. Bookends theory is going to be like, in a long passage of text, you have like the intro, the ending, and then the body. This is a good way to do it as far as to show something like that. Middle and the end, right? People usually will skim it. So like you'll process this and then you'll process this, but you'll mostly skim through the middle and you won't really pay a super lot of attention. So that's more like, if you were to test somebody on that, like after reading a long passage of text, or like you could even do this in a text message to someone, they'll probably process what you're talking about at the beginning and the end and mention that in their response. They probably won't think about the middle quite as much because it'll be more like a blur. There'll just be way too much in there. It'll just kind of ramble on. Is kind of the general feeling, though. So usually in a large passage of text, people only really process consciously the beginning and the end, and they maybe will just skim the middle because by that point they feel overwhelmed or whatever. Let's see. Let's see. I don't remember what this quote is actually even from, but he wants normal. Some of these are like dialogue between two characters. He wants normal, but normalcy. I can't think of a way to do this like any faster, really. But normalcy is not what he's made of. It's like the lowest common denominator. They only tell you that, or I could do it in short form, like U becomes the letter U, or things like that. Absolutist speak tendency, I would do that in typing stuff like this the same way. Even though I'm like 100 words per minute plus typer, it's still like, it makes it faster when you're going through this. They tell you that only to feel better about themselves. Better about self. So like this idea that normalcy, like you wouldn't want to be normal because anyone who's exceptional isn't normal, or something along those lines. Like, you know, the best people in the world in a field or whatever are always not going to be normal. The norm is mediocrity. So why would you want to aspire to that? What was the other thing that made me think of here? Like, lowest common denominator. And a lot of these just really have to do with chess, like I'm obsessed or something. There was something that this made me think of. That was another quote. Let me think. Normalcy. This is just the most random shit ever. I won't actually show this because there might be some objectionable thing in here that I might get banned for. I have to censor and filter out, not just for like what seems notable, but you Lazarus one. I saw that again. Okay, let's look at this. Unwillingness to be puzzled. Now, this is actually not my term, but still, unwillingness to be puzzled, right? So there's sort of false certainty. This leads to things like religion, etc. So that would be like you'd be doing it in such a way that rather than it just admitting you don't know something, right? You would want to pose a false answer just to give yourself peace of mind. And you've seen this throughout history so much, so it's no coincidence that so many different civilizations came up with their own version of the same thing, because it's sort of a reaction to the same thing that, like, you know, you're uncertain about so many things in the world, so you want it to either that or it's an egocentric element that you're like the world revolves around people. At one point, literally, like you would feel like, oh, the suns and the other planets revolve around people. So there's a certain egotism to it that any normal process that might exist in nature, like animals breeding, let's say, oh no, now it's love, now it's this and that, you wouldn't look at it objectively because, oh no, it's to do with us, so now it has to be something special where you have to place emphasis to try to control it and structure it and things like that. Rather than admit you don't know much about something or anything, simply animals in the wild, like human beings with slightly greater intelligence, self-awareness, or maybe even question that intelligence one, they assert some specific supernatural explanation for everything. And that still doesn't even necessarily answer the specific thing. It's like, oh, why does it rain? We can answer precipitation, condensation, all this kind of thing. But then if you trace it back far enough, you won't be able to answer it. Right? So no matter what your pseudoscientific explanation is, that doesn't provide the full answer to it. So even like the tide goes in, tide goes out, right? Let's defend that one. We asked ChatGPT this. Tide goes in, tide goes out, right? So you can't explain that. But the thing is, you truly can't explain it. Because yes, you'll explain it in terms of whatever, like scientific explanation that you'll say, but that's not the point. Okay, then explain that scientific process, right? And then explain that and explain that. So if you trace it back far enough, you'll get back to the same existential question, which is you don't know why anything exists or why it works the way it does because you can't explain the origin of existence or anything like that as far as the Big Bang Theory and this and that. You'll trace it back to some unknown eventually, right, that led to all these processes that you can explain and decipher with science. But the point is you would still be uncertain about it, but that still doesn't mean that you can pose your own hypothetical answer because, again, even if you pose, okay, some divine being is doing it or some divine process, that's the same thing. Like, okay, so some scientific process is doing it. We just don't know what it is. Or, oh, that divine being works in mysterious ways. So you're still basically not answering the same query by providing your own hypothetical, sort of false certainty. Yeah, see, this is basically what I would use my phone for anyway, though. I have all these fucking random notes and stuff in here. Let's see, your horse is like carrots in the capture pile. Carrots, you worthless swine. That's a good one. Or, it's almost like I could have some of this stuff already written and then just show it and then use it like as a slideshow presentation, like you would do in school or something. What did the queen say just before getting trapped? The wood never that's actually good. The wood never bothered me anyway. Wow, the capture pile never bothered me anyway. Okay, dude. Just random references. There was once a chess player so gifted, even Magnum Carlos dared not provoke his ire. That's like the Calamite quote, something like that. Even mighty Anne Orlando would not dare to evoke his ire. They promised me a game of kings. I didn't realize I was playing the game of scholars because studying is fun. Let me think about a couple more topics. Yeah, I might try to do this again on Wednesday with some sort of other organized thing. So it'll still basically be just chatting to the extent that obviously, you're just going through random subjects. But the one good thing about it, I guess, is whatever, you get some sort of visual aid in the process. The one thing you don't get, though, or you can kind of split it between the two, you could show like a web browser on one side and sort of show certain web pages and like what you're actually talking about. But I mean, it is literally just chatting. That's even the category that I use for it, because I don't know if there's something. I don't even know if there is a writing category necessarily. I feel like there was, but nobody ever used it. So just chatting is kind of better and more broad. But it's kind of like there is like an art category or drawing category. So writing should have more of an emphasis to it too. Like, what if Stephen King or some famous author goes on stream and says, okay, I want to do like a writing stream and just do some sort of short story or something? Here, let me do one more topic if I can think of one. Oh yeah, here, how about this? Like a wealth privilege sort of thing, maybe also to do with this guy. Let's say in one incarnation of his parents are rich, right? A little bit, like millionaires. And then he becomes, off the back of that, the world's first trillionaire. right? So now all of a sudden you would use that to disqualify it, right? But why is that a bad thing? Like, okay, maybe that's what it took to become the world's first trillionaire. You maybe needed millionaire parents and to maximize that, right? And on the other side, there's this sort of wealth shaming of that, or like privilege, right? This is a quote of mine. The only true privilege is to have good parents, or you could say successful parents if you want to associate whatever. It doesn't mean you're bad because you're poor or something, but it means like, okay, so you had good parents who were successful and that's what they worked their life for. They didn't work just for their own benefit, for their own retirement or whatever, right? They also worked for their kids presumably. And so part of that, like, why would you punish that, right? So you would never get someone to say, this is like they try to turn you against each other. You would never get somebody to say rationally that it's a bad thing for parents to be successful and to try to give their kids the best future, right? If you try to frame that, oh, that's a negative, then you want to tear everybody down just because some people are less successful than others, and because maybe you're bitter and you grew up poor, and I get all that, but it's ultimately a positive, not a negative. Because, oh, that's a good thing. Oh, their parents were successful, and so they got off to a good start. Now, sure, if that makes them lazy or privileged or whatever, that's a separate argument. But in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. But in this modern framework, we've somehow seen it framed as a negative, like, oh, somehow it's privilege of some kind. But again, that would be a good thing to say, like, okay, you got off to a good start. I wish everybody had that privilege or that opportunity. And so also, when someone's greatly successful, it's like maybe that's what it took. That level of success didn't just take their innate ability. It took off them getting to a good ideal start and then doing the best they could on top of that, right? So it wouldn't have been enough in one scenario or the other, right? So what's wrong with that? To become the world's first trillionaire, you have to start off as a millionaire and whatever. Now your kid might become something even beyond that. Yeah, that's kind of a good topic to say that. Again, it's a twisted, distorted perspective, right? You would never want to say, oh, that's somehow a bad thing. Oh, it's a bad thing that your parents worked hard and they were successful, and so therefore you benefit from that. They should have just been poor and struggled so that you could be poor and struggle, and so that everybody can just always be poor and struggle. It's like this defeatist, reductive thing that, you just want everyone to struggle and suffer just for the sake of it. Or to say, like, oh, you should start poor and then you should work your way up and then show off that, oh, look what I overcame, adversity. But at some point that's going to stop. So then even in that hypothetical scenario, right, like, okay, let's look at it this way. Parents are poor, you work hard, become successful, right? So even in that scenario, okay, so you didn't have privilege, if you want to use this, then you work hard, you become successful, then your kids will benefit from that. So even in that scenario, it would only last one generation where it's like, oh, you have a poor upbringing, then you work above it, you prove the point that people are trying to make, and then it's no longer going to be the case, or at least not as much. And so that it's not going to last forever. Like this notion that everybody always has to do that you would treat it as a bad thing doesn't really make sense. What else do we have? Let me do maybe one more. This is kind of random. I don't know. The only better way could be is if you do it like this, where you wouldn't have to ever move it. But I guess it's not that big of a deal. You just write, you just put it back. Isn't this more exciting, at least, than watching somebody type on a fucking Word document, I guess? And yeah, this webcam is at a very low FPS, but it shouldn't really matter when all you're showing with it is like chess pieces moving on a classical board or some other random thing like this. Although I think the screen was a little bit glaring, so I don't know how that really has looked. It's hard for me to tell from just looking at it on the phone there. Let me think of a few more ideas here, but I'm too lazy to do that. Like, I should make a collection of different oh, my phone's touchscreen actually kind of works with these gloves, and before I accidentally fuck everything up. Primitives coming up in a new civilization for the first time with all its geographic resources and machination process. Oh yeah, this is a couple good points here. So like culture taken as like some sort of symbol of pride. It's like it's often defined by the nearness postulate, which means this we used in the stimuli acme discussion as well. Like, oh, that application of it is that, oh, you'll marry the one person you're meant to be with in the whole world and the love of your life, who happen to live in the same general geographic area as you, and went to the same school and went to the same workplace. Like, to show, not even to diminish it or say you shouldn't do that, but it's to put it in proper perspective, that you're posing it as an absolute, like, oh, it's meant to be and this and that, when really it's just a reactive thing that's based on convenience factors, nearness, things like that. In this day and age with dating sites and stuff like this, you meet people all around the world, sure, but the core point is just you're emphasizing it out to be something more than what it actually is, based on the objective process that you're using, which again, that's just nearness. You happen to go to the same school and then you're together for life, or the same workplace or something. So again, the only negative with it is that you're posing it as something greater than what it is, not just, oh, I happen to meet somebody here and I happen to like them and that's good enough, but it's this turning it into an absolute. But the nearness postulate here would be that, okay, some culture around the world is a certain way, but it's not like, oh, that has to do with them as a people or a society, as much as pride as people might take into it. We were having this discussion like to do with food or something. It's like, okay, why does a certain people like fish? Right, a certain country is seafood. Oh, because they happen to be on the water. So it's not like this inherent choice that, oh, we chose to like seafood because we like it. No, you chose it because it was convenient for you, whereas somebody else would have chosen something else because it's convenient for them. So this notion that you would take pride in things like that, I find, is kind of shallow, because it's just completely reactionary, right? It's not even like it's a non-choice reaction, as we would call it. Like, just you're doing what is available to you or what you have to do. Right, so there was no choice in that. In fact, the opposite would be more of a choice. In this day and age where you have all these options and like a worldwide global market, now what you choose to eat or what you choose to do would be more of a choice, because more things are available to you, whereas there it would have just been purely reactionary. So it's sort of insisting upon non-choice reaction, right? And you'll take pride in it, and you'll argue, fight with other people about it. Oh, like, my reactionary non-choice is better than your reactionary non-choice, where again, it's all just a reaction of circumstances. And then the other point here is there's sort of an advent of cultures meeting, right, where we associate it with race. This is actually a good one. Two cultures meet, right, for the first time, relatively. And so you get, like, let's say Europe to Native Americans, something like that. Right, so the defining factor here might very well be technology, not culture. Right, Europeans have superior technology, so they're going to go and they're going to be imperial and take over and things like that. The point is, people will conflate this with culture to the point where, like, oh, it's some sort of again, it's about race or something else like that. Even if they weren't, right, even if that wasn't a factor, it's like, oh, you're technologically superior, so that disparity in technology allows you to do what you did, and you might have done the same thing to somebody else. Right, a good example is India. Right, so this is where technology, the machination process, is defining. If you look at it, India was treated at least differently and better there because they were more technologically advanced. So it might have been more trouble than it was worth, or more difficult to do it the same way. So now instead they're doing it like they're taxing you, right? So it at least depends on that circumstance. So it's a less moral argument, and it's more a technology argument, just what's available, not some. But no, like, the first time one group comes upon another happens to be in this scenario. So again, that's not the defining factor. Like, oh, look, they're doing it because of this. They're doing it because of technology. It just happens to co-align that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the first time that they're meeting them. So they would have done that sooner if they meet them sooner, or they wouldn't have done it if they were more technologically advanced. So that's always a bit of a fallacy that people use, right? Technology is defining, and that's why something like that would say happen. Or an even better equalizing factor is, again, it's not morally like, oh, like, if you can go back in time and give them a warning that, oh, these big bad people are coming after you, or are going to come here and invade your land. The real alternative is, if you gave them better technology, would the same thing have happened? So then it's not a question of the intent, like, oh, these big bad people are coming to do this to you, right? Because that's just the nature of history, and that's happened countless times. It's more to look at it like, oh, if your technology was equal to theirs or better, you might be doing the same thing to them, or at least you would be able to protect yourself from them doing it to you. So that should always be the emphasis. Let's see, cult of personality. This is like a stimuli acme one here. Let's do this. Stimuli acme, right? Let's say you get attention. let's start to, or you know what, I'll end off by defining some of this absolutist speak. So maybe we can use this in the future to make this easier. Get attention because of looks, let's say hypothetically, right? But then if get too much, or if you bring it up, they play victim. Like, oh, you're looking at me like that, or you're somehow focusing on that or reducing somebody to that. But again, that might be part of the thing too. So you have to take the negative with the positive, or as part of the same process. The solution is often, okay, just don't, maybe in this space, like, oh, don't do face cam, then it won't even be a factor one way or the other. Or even a workplace environment, like, I have a friend that's always a good example of this, who she's like very conservative with how she dresses, so it's almost up to you. And she's also a bit of a dick if somebody tries to, she's very assertive that way. Like, she's not going to let you do anything, so like say something weird or flirting or whatever. So like, if you're like that, some of it has to do with you. That doesn't mean that it justifies what people do, but in some extreme cases, it's just more like sometimes it is a choice of what you want to give off as a vibe. So let's define absolutist speak, and we'll even write it like this: absist speak. So this is just to make it simpler to write. So it's like where it's intuitive enough that you would think, let me do like one more term, or no, I don't even have to, like 2 equals 2, or like because equals because, right? These are pretty basic, so it just makes it easier, and you still get the point across. So I would use this a lot when doing those things, just because it would make it so much easier to type. And that shows you the rate at which we were maybe going, that you were able to basically do that even while typing, which is at least a little bit faster. Oh, it's much faster than this, actually, to come to think of it. Because what else do we have? I remember we used like indoctrination with something like this. This is at least good. We can use like a glossary of terms for this in the future. Indoctrination, social contrivance was like this. A lot of these were the terms, social control, but like basically anything, just reduce it in a way where you could tell very easily what it is. Like machination process is just that. Let me see if I can remember more of these, or even just basic, bridges between words and things like that. Using like the and symbol instead of the word and. Anything to reduce it to an easier form to write faster and things like that, while still getting the point across. Like, let's try to translate one of these into it. Like, we even did that. Get attention because of looks. Even here, you could do like LKS, but that's a little bit harder to get across. If you, like you equals you, obviously, bring it up, play victim. What else? Let's try to write one in the form of absolutist speak to give an example. It doesn't even matter what we would write. Here, this will just be another test title. I have many. Even this is kind of dumb, because like many, you're just getting rid of one word, but it still gets the point across. Reduce it as much as you can while still making it clear to the reader necessarily what it's saying. I have many names. Some people, like PPL, that's a good one, call me the human. Here, so many names. Some people call me the human calculator. Even somebody who doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about, they would at least be able to decipher this, right? I have many names. They're all pretty clear. Some people call me the human calculator. It seems pretty clear. Now, some of them almost feel unnecessary because there's a difference of like one letter, but some of these words would be easier to do. Let me try to transcribe something else. Oh, this is a good quote here. Those, oh, for fuck's sake, why does he keep doing that? I think I keep pressing this button. Those who stand for nothing fall for anything, everything. Or another alteration of this was, are offended by everything, basically. Or I should have done this in that same form, but it's fine. So those who stand for nothing fall for anything, or like fall for any trick or deception, or they're offended by everything too, because they don't have any standard in the first place. So it's easy to sort of lead them astray that way. So again, that's similar to the whole thing of like voting against, don't vote against somebody, vote for somebody that you actually have conviction in. But instead it lowers your standard, like, oh, we'll settle for anybody just because this other guy is bad. Which again, it doesn't mean that's not true or whatever. You can have your opinion, but you should still, once you make that decision, like, okay, we don't like this guy, so we're not going to vote for him, fine. But now come to your own natural conclusion. I don't know why that point is so hard for people to understand. Let's see, I'm getting ads on my fucking little notepad thing here. I guess that's why it's free, though. That's why I never use ad block. Actually, I believe in the whole thing of, like, so much of this content is free because of that in the first place, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube or something. Even if it means I sometimes show ads and become vicious of Destroyer Boards. We've already seen that one. Oh yeah, here's sort of maybe a fun one to end on. Do you have, if only I could draw, I could show it in some other sense. Revolving door of kindness concept. The idea that you would, someone holds it for you, so you hold it for the next person holds for you hold for next, and on. So that could apply to many things, right? You just sort of pass it on, and it's like, somebody does something nice for you, so then you do the same thing for the next person, they do it for the next person, whatever. So that's just a good imagery to show us. So let's review and go through every single one that we saw here. Again, why couldn't I do this with paper? I guess I would end up wasting paper, because here you feel like you can use it so flippantly. Let's look at all the subjects we actually touched on. This is a good, like, stream of consciousness thing. This could be fun to do with a little more structure, to be sure. Or can't you just, like, tap on it in advance? I guess not. That's more so for books. Because, of course, you're not allowed to write on books unless you have to first go in the menu here, then click on the note, then you have to put the note down, then you have to go inside the note, then you have to write on the note, then you have to close the note, then you have to look at it again, or go back into it. Or you can kind of have it on there at the same time, but it creates, like, a pop-up. The whole allure of this would be, in that context at least, would have been just write on it like I'm doing here, even if the book's text is all over, and you're writing over it however you want. You want to circle a word, you want to highlight something. That would be the whole point of it. The top chest titles, no one has said. See, this is almost the way to do it. Now we get in the final form where we could just read through it and show it off. But I don't know. It's not like I want to prepare this ahead of time, and I should at least prepare subjects or something. Top chest titles. No one has said goodbye the horses this much since Q Lazarus song. Errol, obviously the guy who is elitist victim blamer, but very accomplished, so therefore he can get away with it, talking shit to the world leaders, that classic scene. World's first trillionaire, cures cancer, creates renewable energy, just to show like he's single-handedly done all these things that everyone else combined couldn't do. Terraform Mars. Elon Musk wants to role play as this guy. He's sort of the X factor that's always in the background in the story that could make the key difference, for better or for worse. In one incarnation, he could take sides with the good guy at the end, and he could be the savior, or he could take sides with the bad guy and be the surprise, final villain. In fact, that's a perfect sort of role for this sort of character, right? These two nations are warring against each other, and it makes it seem like one of the leaders or generals or something for one of the the bad nation is going to be the main villain. But then towards the end, this guy sort of usurps him. He's like, oh, I was just using you. I was just, helping you the whole time just so I could somehow take control. I was using that country to my own advantage. And then he comes out as the final villain. But normally he's more like a supporting character. You can go back in time. This is sort of the harsh perspective he has, but it has, that sort of Darwinistic tendency to it. If you go back in time, would you warn them about, oh, the big bad invader? Or would you teach them how to use gunpowder? Because, again, which one's actually going to have more impact? Which one's actually has some real element to it? This is us learning notation. Again, the queen, ladies first, so the queen comes first. The A also comes first with white because white moves first. So A starts on the white file. And then also white before black is why, okay, A is there. It's also why 1 is there. So that's easy enough to see. So the only thing you need to know is the queenside rook is where A1 is. Queenside rook is A1 because, again, ladies first and white first, right? So you already know that A is going to be white because it's that. Why do you even need to? A is going to be on the white file because, obviously, white goes first. One is also going to be on the white file because white is first. But then just to know which side does one go on the king side or the queen side, one goes on the queen side because it's ladies first. That's why I said that point. That's a good way to try to remember it if you really need to. But once you know it, it's not that big of a deal. The one willing to go to extremes will outlive the other in a moral context between these two countries, like we were talking about. Then be able to do moral good finally. Or if you try to do good in the first place, you might get overtaken or conquered by the other. The worst leaders in history are a result of voting against rather than voting for. And again, this is just as examples. People play false duality with this, but that is a good way to sort of at least disqualify that. You've ran before, you weren't the candidate. That shows the fallacy of voting against. Corporate media influence both ways. Both, Trump and Biden getting disproportionate amount of votes for that reason. Opponent got more the next time. Like, you both got more is the point. So even by again criticizing him so much, I shouldn't have done it like this angle though. I should just write it like a normal angle and then show it. The Palmer fighter Wilt Chamberlain thing, you can only measure somebody against their peers. Nobody else had even averaged 40, let alone 50, so they're doing against the same competition. He's faced the same disadvantages as everybody else that supposedly made the era weak. He didn't have the advantages that you have today. And then here's where I started to wise up and I guess do this. Write it sort of straight down. So contrivance, unnatural, some man-made structure or process. Contrivance, response versus inherent man. What does this even say? I can't even read my own writing. My writing might not be very good in this because it's very different than if you were to whatever. Like it's not the same, especially given the angle. Love or moral cheating is wrong. Okay, those are, again, you would pose all these things, undue emphasis, both positive and negative, to try to create the process that you want for society to say, oh, this is what people should and shouldn't do. But it falls in direct contrast, or the reason why you're doing it is in reaction to the inherent state and tendencies that people would have, right? So the easiest way to show it is like law and order too. The reason why you would have that is because people naturally would do all the things that you're saying are wrong, like killing people, hurting people, whatever. These tendencies would exist normally, so that's why you have them as a response to it, to try to stop that from happening. I don't know how you could really zoom this in to make it any better, because all I would do is make it smaller, or it would probably become blurrier. Superficiality, people appreciate or they're apprehensive about something. Wait. They're apprehensive. Oh, they're apprehensive about some process, not because they're above it or it's somehow they're in control of it, but because they're not, right? So you have to almost hide from your own inherent tendencies or all that. False inherent reaction, so you treat your reaction to the inherent state as the inherent state, which sometimes you lose sight then of why a lot of conflicts happen. Like, oh, how could a person possibly do this inherent tendency of theirs? Because of all the contrivance response we do, it's more like, oh, your contrivance response to it then failed, and you call into question the nature of the process. Or it's like this idea that, oh, a process or a contrivance can never be wrong. It must be your fault for failing to overcompensate for it or uphold it. So it's always the individual's fault, never the contrivance. Even though the form of contrivance changes over time and throughout history and things like that. Is it impressive to be good if you put so much time and effort than other people? So that's sort of like the equalizing factor. So then it only values it at the absolute highest level, that like you're the best in the world against other people who are also putting in more time, instead of being a king of the sandcastle effect and sort of a fake elitist bottom feeder where you sort of pick on people who haven't done as long as you, so of course you're better than them. And this is the hilarious way you can invalidate both. Like, oh, you're innately good, so you didn't work for how good you are, or you worked so hard for it, so that's why you're so good. So anybody could do it if they just did the same, put in the same time. So no matter what you do, you can never get credit for what you do. The bubble, everyone played in the bubble. And it also would have hurt you even because of home court, so it shouldn't be discredited that way. The uwu gets millions of views. So again, you can blame the viewers. Don't necessarily blame them for making, whatever kind of content you're saying cult of personality appeal. Both has effect. So it's the fault of the viewers to the extent that, you shouldn't reward such things. But then at the same time, once you reach a certain level of success, it does fall on you to try to give back to the game sort of in that way. To try to actually give it your max potential, which of course has not been the case. Being quiet, what you say means more than how you say it. You don't need to emphasize it. if it has substance, and by contrast, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. The whole reason why you have to place emphasis is often because it lacks substance, so you have to almost overcompensate for it. So that's almost a good sign. The more you have to dress something up, the worse it actually is, and the more banal and boring and monotone something might be delivered in, the more substance it might inherently have, or at least you're letting that sort of speak for itself. Society will value appearances when foundation is lacking, even at the expense of reality. And also more characterization of Aral. You got the picky quality. He's arrogant, but it's justified. Again, when somebody seems to be smarter than everyone else, at least in their field, you maybe should question, are they crazy or are we crazy? And they're just revealing it. So we sort of bury them to make ourselves feel better about ourselves, because they clearly know things that we don't, and their mind is clearly operating above ours. Again, even if in some specific field like that, maybe you wouldn't completely discredit somebody like that. Sort of like the mad genius effect. Maybe they realize things that are true, but that nobody wants to acknowledge, kind of. Ignorance is bliss sort of reaction. Injuries are God's way of making it fair for everyone else. That would be Go Leonard kind of joke quotes that I was talking about. Naka. Just a 75% memory. What's the other 25%? Whoever is black or white. Those who expect or seek shortcuts cut short the work needed to succeed. That's kind of just a wordplay quote. Anything mass-produced suffers in quality as a result. And this applies again to even to people in the Simuli Acme sense. When your pawns are triple stacked, you have my permission to resign. That one doesn't really fit on that page, but I was just kind of doing this randomly. Kind of anticlimactic Nolan endings. Scarecrow getting tased, Bane getting killed off screen. There were so many things with The Dark Knight Rises like that, though. Like, just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, very, yeah, like even when they fight each other, sort of, he's like, oh, so you came back to die with your city? No, I came back to stop you. Like, what kind of a line is that? Just say, I came back to save it. That would have worked. Or whatever, some other line. But no, I came back to stop you. Like, who would write that line in the right mind? It's just a banal expository thing. Like, I'm not saying it has to be the most eloquent thing ever. I become Vichy, destroyer of boards. Obviously, a little joke quote on that I've used before. This is a little RP quote from WoW. A hunter has no need for fangs or a leash if they have a weapon in both hands, kind of grieving over the loss of your pet and reveling in being able to dual wield for the first time. Fear not the barren land, said the Horde, for we'll find nourishment in our sweat or blood, so our hard work or our sacrifice. And again, if we're not good enough to keep it going, then it's our fault, right? We deserve to die, almost, is what he's saying. You shouldn't be like this cushy alliance. Treetop fruit effect, placebo. Again, does it taste better just because it's at the top? This is one where we can show off at least the illustration element. This is clearly, I'd be giving a college lecture like this. Fucking, holy shit, dude. So yeah, does it taste better because it's at the top, or is it just because you're associating psychologically the work that went into getting it, so therefore that makes it more satisfying? And so what you're really enjoying is not the fruit itself, but it's actually the work or process to get there. And of course, it's just an analogy. As far as the fruit, it could be anything. Bookends theory, usually people only really process and focus on the beginning and the end, and they kind of skim through the middle, just the basic psychological process. He wants normal. This is some quote that I can't remember what it's actually from. But normalcy is not what she's made of, or again, this takes it to a different sense of, like, normal is really desirable because it just means you're going to be mediocre and average like everybody else. Anybody who's exceptional is not going to be normal, let's say. Lowest common denominator, they only tell you that to feel better about themselves. Unwillingness to be puzzled, religion, posing sort of false absolutes, answers, certainties, and also this whole ideation that people always feel that everything has to revolve around them. It can't just be a natural process. Sort of tracing back, the tide goes in, tide goes out, even as much as it's mocked. The truth behind any sort of statement like that is, if you trace it back far enough, you'll never have the answer to everything. Why does this process happen? Because of this, because of this, because of this. But then why does it ultimately happen in the first place, or the origin of all those processes are not going to, you're not going to have an answer for that. Now, that doesn't justify, Bill O'Reilly, the one saying it, it doesn't necessarily justify what his answer would be, which is, oh, God did it or religion did it, but still, you can trace it back far enough. So any question, there was some sort of expression like this existentially, like, what is this? A person asks at some point in their life, right? This phrase, it's like some pivotal moment of existentialism in one of these stories where they just kind of sit back and think deeply about their life for the first time. Like, what is this whole experience? Like the whole of universe, existence, everything. And so what that ties into is the idea that if you trace any one thing, the smallest thing, whatever it is, back far enough, you'll find that same answer. You're not really sure about where it originates or what the origin of all the process is. So everything is just being lived in a reactive sense. Then this is the same characterization a little more. Let's say hypothetically, if the parents were rich in one instance, then maybe that's fine. What's wrong with that? Privilege is a good thing. Even if your parents are poor, and then you work hard to work out of that and overcome it, then at what point do you or there's some sort of false credibility here. It's like, oh, you can't make a claim because you weren't poor or something, right? Let's say, or whatever. Right, say, oh, whatever. You can always discredit someone. You didn't do such and such, so therefore you can't talk about it. But therefore, in most cases, then you could discredit everybody that way, right? Even using like in a sports argument, like, oh, you never played the sport at the highest level, or if you did, you didn't win a ring, or they'll always try to find a way to discredit you. But you should focus on the idea, not the individual, right? Because that has nothing to do with the case. You could make a good case even if you're Michael Jordan and you pick Kwame Brown. You don't know what the fuck you're doing as an executive. Culture often defined by the nearness postulate. And so what that means is, again, it's often defined by geography and what's around you. Insisting upon non-choice reaction. Again, people take too much pride in things like that. Two cultures meeting for the first time often has more to do with those sort of conflicts than any, again, culture inherent state. Stimuli, acme. Again, this is just one of the precepts of it. You get attention for something that you're necessarily placing emphasis on. You can easily work around that. Abs to speak will just show like this is a way to maybe write it out easier. Although maybe people, I don't know. Sometimes people don't like that, but it still gets the point across. I have many names. It's good if you're writing like a longer quantity of stuff. I have many names. Some people call me the human calculator. It's pretty easy usually to read because it's pretty obvious what it's going to say, right? It wouldn't be that hard to figure out. Those who stand for nothing fall for anything or offended by everything. Revolving door, that was the last one. Yeah, that's kind of a fun thing to do, I guess, but there's nothing really that special about this thing. Like, again, you could do the same thing on paper or all these, little technological gimmicks. Like, why couldn't you just do this on a notepad and do it that way? So if I do this again, like on Wednesday, let's say, I should go in with at least a little bit of something else to work with at least. I wonder, could you actually play chess on this thing in a web browser? Let's say I should try that before we end off, just as a no gimmick stream like this is complete without that. Like I played on the Switch. Right, I played on the Switch and then I get to fucking play Nintendo Clubhouse chess at the end after playing Smash Brothers or whatever. We're trying to do more. We do this, yeah, let's actually try it. And actually the battery lasted a pretty long time. It's a good way to test that. Like it started at 49%. So in about 2 hours, it only used like 6%. Not that you're doing anything too exhaustive, but that is mostly what you're going to be doing on here anyway. This would be very interesting. I'm going to mate you on my Kindle Scribe. Wait, it's not even letting me do it. I just wish it felt like it was a little bit less scuffed with all this. Like you could actually... Fuck's sake, man. Can I not just go to like Google or something and then do it from there? Like it doesn't have like a base browser even that it goes to if you just type something in there randomly. It wants you to only put the... What the fuck, man? Okay, just give me oh my god, dude. Play chess. I gotta understand if it doesn't work, but it should at least let you go on there and show you that it's not working. Like it'll visually be all fucked up, as if you shouldn't be able to play chess on here of all things. Wait few seconds. They're using a little bit of short form speech themselves. Ironic that the format based on the long form postulate would use auto injury attorneys. What the fuck is going on here? Let me try to do it a little closer. This doesn't have an actual web browser, just to be clear. Or maybe I put lechess.com and you're supposed to put lechess.org. You would think it should still let you at least go there. Or they're going to restrict what sites you can actually go to. Oh no, it worked now. I must have just mistyped something. Lechess.org. This would be hilarious, dude. I have a chessboard in the background and we do this. Let's do like let's see how it would actually work. So you go into here. It's just going to be a random unranked game anyway. So let's see. We'll beat somebody on our fucking Kindle Scribe. This is the ultimate. But yeah, you would think if nothing else, you should be able to play a game like chess on here or Scribble IO, and I could have a competitive advantage because I'm actually using a pen. Unbelievable that we would do this, but let's just play a game. I mean, I'm just trying to show it in more ways than just, oh, all you're doing the whole time is writing notes or reading books. Like, there should be something more you can do on it. And even if you can technically do this, I don't think that was even on my end. I think it was just... I think it is working, even if it looks a little scuffed. Right, so I can make my move. You can even make it with the pen. That's nice. Hey, this isn't so bad, actually. Of course, the angle is not ideal for me to look at it like this either, but... for fuck's sake. Okay, let's go ahead. We do this. Now he brings his bishop out. Castle, and we just have to allow the pin to not occur to the extent that that is always something that bothers me. He does that, which has nothing to do with anything really, or he's going to stop my pin from occurring, but you want to go like this, and then you also want to bring the other pawn up here on A3. All this does is it creates just a smaller screen that you're playing on then. Like, why would that be? But it is at least cool that this works. Or you got to put this in full screen somehow. Let me see if I can't make this bigger like on the browser. Because there's too much other UI that you don't need. All you want to do is really show the chessboard. But no, I almost wanted to use this as a way to encourage myself to study chess. Like, we'll go in and we'll sort of, you know, we'll read like Bobby Fischer teaches chess or something. Now he's got the ability to pin, so you simply react to that. I kind of like moving with the pen, actually. Or, of course, you could do it with your finger touchscreen, but you probably shouldn't. Try to think of all the games you could play on here, even in a shitty sense, like theoretically any Flash game, web browser game, kind of game. Because I'm not used to playing games on my phone either, so like, could I play PvZ Heroes on here? But anything that you have to download probably wouldn't work. Now we'll try to unleash the pawn so that the bishop can escape. But the one move I would dread here is if the knight goes there, then he takes the thing. Right, so you can't really save the bishop in that sense. So he finally castles, takes my advice of just castling. So this, of course, I'm not even logged in or anything, although theoretically you would think I'm not going to do it like that, but... Or I'll make like a dummy sort of Smurf account. What did he even do there? Oh, he moved the king sort of frivolously. Now at least my bishop can escape, and his is going to go there. Now normally I would like to take here, but I almost don't even want to. Because I was doing all that to try to bait the bishop to be taken by the knight anyway. Or like protect mine from doing that. Now he pushes the pawn there. That's an uncommon move, I must say, in that situation. But for once, let's actually just ignore it and try to break up his structure a little bit. So he goes here. He could also take there. And so now he takes with the knight, which I was not expecting that. So I'm not really too worried about that either. So now maybe I could take, he could take back with the knight. The problem with what you're doing here is you're allowing him to basically open the rook to towards your king, but he's much more a fan of just taking with knights, it feels like. I don't see anything crazy he's doing, but maybe my vision is more impaired even than usual. So we're double attacking this, which doesn't matter because he's covering even with the knight itself. Got to be a way to go full screen on this. Let me see. Or like just zoom in a little bit. Oh shit, there we go. That's at least a little better. You got to kind of do the whole hand pinch thing. Is it really still that small? I guess the scribe itself is small, so that just makes it look like that. Um, let's see. Got 7 minutes left. Where am I now? He just moved what? I don't even see. Or has he not moved? No, he's moved. Oh, he goes ahead. He goes there. Which I don't really understand, but I'll still do it. So he's gonna bring the queen in maybe and be pretty close to mating me, but I think I can figure it out. It's just sometimes this claustrophobic element that can create problems for you. It looks like he just sacked his knight, but maybe he took something and I didn't realize it, or I don't know. I'm not obsessed with chess. I just play it on Tuesday. Also, fuck. Anything I do, I find a way to do it. I was gonna make a compilation of stuff like that, like me playing it in Roblox, me playing it in Nintendo Clubhouse. I could show it me playing it in this, and me playing it in what was that game? Neverwinter Nights. I played more chess in Neverwinter Nights than actual chess because I just somehow. Wait, now this is fine actually because he would take. I would. No, it's not. So where could you put the knight that would be that big of a deal? Because you can always just do this, can't you? Now he'll take here and check and potentially fork. Right, so is there not anything I can do about that to the extent that to the extent that maybe I'll even settle for it because he had to sack a piece to do it. You'll take, but the problem is it's not even like, oh well, oh no, it is because just trying to think if there's something more the queen can do here. Now if he takes, it's fine. Imagine if this is the final step that it takes to like now we can punish him here, but he's probably gonna mate my dumbass if he just goes there. But I'll still do it. Or wait, what? Oh no, I'm blind. I'm missing that. So let's see what we could do here. He's gonna take there so I can go here. Aside from that, I don't really know what he can do. He can just bring the knight somewhere else, but nowhere looks good. So this seems actually like a relatively okay spot for now. Or what I'm not accounting for is the bishop take, which could lead very well to a mate. In fact, it probably would have. Because he could have took then. If I took then he took, then my king can't even move. It was just mate. I don't even mind if he like... I don't even mind if he gets like a piece advantage here because he already sacked something to get here. But I think he literally just missed mate. So now even if he does it, he could take with the knight, I take, then he takes with the bishop, then I take, then he takes. So technically, he's still okay. Like none of this has solved his thing. I'm just loading up the fucking material onto this square. Why can't I move? Yeah, this is not necessarily to the thing's credit that you can even do this, but at least it's something that you can do. Like, what did he do? He just keeps moving that there. He's giving a check, which I was not necessarily expecting. We could possibly do this one. So now that's going to be takeable, though. I'm dumb. But he's missing a lot of obvious things. I guess this is what we get for... I wouldn't even care to just, like, not... I don't care. Like, just do whatever you want. Just get rid of some material, because we have enough of a material advantage where we can get away with doing that. Now, at this stage, could I not just bring, like, a thing in to actually do something? Would be the big question. You could take there, I could take, you could take there. If you take there, it's actually mate. No, it's not, though. Not by itself. This one is obviously attacked by that. So you would take, I would take, you would take, I would still take, you would take. It's easier maybe to show the takes because I'm not the greatest with using those arrows. You have 4 minutes left. This is just like a random game. That's why I definitely shouldn't lose it. Because whoever this guy is not very good. He's missed a couple good opportunities. He moves that stupid thing back. So now I'll just try to bring this up a little bit. We should be relatively safe. We got to watch that though, because if this pawn goes at any point, then you're in a pin situation. So that's a very dangerous play to actually make. I can almost guarantee it is not correct. It opens up a little bishop take on the pawn that could possibly fork the 2, but it almost might not even be worth it to do that. I got to use my lights for bishop somehow, but I'm just not doing it. Yeah, we'll play like Scribble IO on here or some dumb shit. Okay, so now we got... We may as well just take this. I don't know what he's doing. You could take here, but then I could simply take back. Or now you're taking this, but I can take this. It's not really a big deal. Although I probably will be down material now. I'm not even sure. I can't seem to click. What the fuck? Here, I'm going to end up pre-moving something that I don't want to do. Now you could check back here, but obviously he's going to not let me do that. So I should almost just move the king now. The bishop is covered, knight's covered, queen's covered. So now we're just looking at a situation where we have the, or in fact, if he moves it here as like a cheeky thing, like, oh, haha, I'm going to attack the queen, then the bishop would be takeable, or would take him, obviously. Now at this point, you can just go back. So now he could do that move, but it doesn't matter, or it kind of matters, but not really, because the whole point is that you can basically just still double cover it, so it's not that big of a deal. So it's the light square bishop that's going to come into play here as possibly a defining factor. Now we could try to move the knight around a little bit, maybe double attack that. Black resigned, but why? He didn't even blunder anything or anything. I could check there. I could maybe have given some checks, but I don't even really know. Whatever, we're somehow hacking by playing on this. But no, at least you can play on there and give it some sort of other... See, it should have stuff like this, though. It should have some app on there that you can already play chess on or something. I don't feel like it has much of anything because somehow you have to hit that X to actually get out of here. If anybody even has one of these things, but... I don't know. I don't think you can like really use color either. It's like all in black and white. I mean, all these sacrifices that you make to simulate paper, as if you couldn't just use paper. But even with paper, I can put color in real life. But then how would you highlight something? I guess just with that blur blob thing that you do. That's kind of like imagine doing that though. Imagine playing chess at sub 1500 rating on an inflated website on a fucking Kindle Scribe. Now that is a new low, right? Boat has set the bar, and we're trying to go even under it. So this is the thing. But yeah, is there anything else on here that is of interest really? And I feel like there's not. Let's look at that notation thing once more just to see. Or wait, wasn't this the one I just used? You have to tap the thing, then tap back out. Where did that one go? Wait a second. Books. Wait, page 50. Oh, maybe I'm just too far along in it. I don't know why. Oh, wow. We went really for that many pages? Like fucking 50 pages? Holy shit. Let me do one other thing here. I'll make a list. Like, let's try things to improve for Elder Scrolls 6, right? So we had a whole bunch of these that were good, like better melee hitboxes. Right, what are some other good ones? We have don't make secondary skills, as in like lockpicking shouldn't be using the same points as like destruction and one-handed and stuff like that, because nobody's gonna choose like, oh, my first stat point I'm gonna put in lockpicking, right? They should be in two separate trees for stuff like that. Hey stars, welcome back. What other things did I say? I made a video on it recently actually, but I can't remember still. That was one of my few recorded sessions actually of something, because I didn't do that actually on stream. I was just going through my old, whatever, like written list of the things to put on here. Hell Let Loose is a good game. I've never played it. Maybe I should do that next Saturday, since I had no idea what to play today. Or I was sort of relying on ones that are about to get delisted. Like last week I did Paragon, the Over Prime or whatever. Secondary skills. What else was there? Like better speech system. I mean, you can just take any one thing and say, oh, just make it better. But speech system. Maybe like I said, environment variety. Maybe I said, oh, you know what I said? Maybe I forgot to even mention this. More things to spend money on, even if it's like, I even said there should be, and I don't mean like a horse armor like DLC in real life. I mean like after you play the game for 1,000 hours or hundreds of hours, like a lot of people have, because it's such a replayable game and that's to its strength. The one thing it lacks is like have like $1 million thing that you can buy in the shop, even if it's just a cosmetic in the game, like, oh, horse armor that way is a joke, or some skin for your character that permanently changes your appearance, or whatever, just some decoration for your house. Even if it's something innocuous, it would still give you something to save for. Whereas over time, I feel like there's just nothing to dump your money into, so that's always kind of a letdown. Then we have like boss type enemies, which is, you could say dragons feel like it, but they sort of feel like glorified enemies after a while. So that's something. I feel like there's one big one that I'm forgetting, but. Or yeah, Kill It With Fire is a good game, also known as Living in Australia, because it's a game where you kill spiders all day, but they don't even fight back in that one. What am I going over? This is some list of whatever, like things to improve before Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. So this is something I did like maybe 10 years ago. I made like a list of it, and who would have thought that the game still wouldn't be out by now? So it's still relevant to bring up. Yeah, you would have liked my notation thing though. Yeah, this is us studying chess. So let's actually try to recreate it once more, just offhand. Everybody's such a big chess fan. 1, 2, 3. The biggest thing I struggle with is just the sheer number, like, of actually making these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Now we could do it again with the 8. You just keep doing it over and over, and eventually you'll get it. That's chess in a nutshell. But for some reason, it doesn't even occur to me in the course of a game. Like, why would I need to know notation then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So one more. Like, why would I need to know it from the perspective of clearly it's all out of proportion and stuff too. Why would I need to know it? Because I'm not thinking about it. It's more for like reading moves and things like that. So let's do it again. We'll go A1. Well, I can't be wrong because you don't know where I'm even putting it. But this is white. This is queenside, rook, obviously, horse, bishop, queen, king. Wait, oh. King, bishop, horse, rook. Now you would have A1, A2, A3, A4, whatever. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Or I'm doing it too narrow, but whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I just struggle to sort of visualize it when I'm thinking about that. It just doesn't occur to me, as random as it is. But yeah, we should study openings like this somehow, but I don't see why you would want to use it like this. This is what it would take, some sort of gimmick to try to get me to finally study. I'm actually going to read a chess book, which I kind of wanted to do that. Like I was going to do the Fisher chess one, but I don't know if you would be allowed to really do it. Or what I could do is at least like, I could use this as a companion thing and read it, but also show the positions from it on an actual game. Let's see what that is. I thought I had bought it actually, but library. No, I hadn't. I had only gotten this one. That's so weird. Yeah, we need like a public domain chess book, which I don't know how many public domain books would actually be on here. Probably some. Chess is like my own notebook here. Levi Rosman, the clout chasing content creator, even though he is a good player. It's like, look, dude, I would have loved to see you publish this before. Buy for $11.99. So would I be allowed to read it on stream? Probably not. That's the problem with this. The React content reaches its lowest form where you're reading a book. $11.99. That's actually pretty cheap though. How to Win at Chess: The Ultimate Guide for Beginners and Beyond. Can't be that much beyond, because if they're over 2,400, then you're not going to be much help to them. But okay, dude. Let's read let's just read reviews of stuff and make fun of them. I've read a few beginner chess books. I bet you probably never even knew what chess was before you watched some random Levy video. This is how people get introduced to it with such low standards, like Botez sisters. Like, how many of these people were fans of chess before them? Probably not, because obviously then chess would have been a lot more popular in the first place. So that is sort of a sad commentary that you're sort of celebrating it in spite of chess, not because of chess, right? Because you're doing it like, if you really cared, you would have watched High Level from the beginning or something of that sort. You kind of can zoom in and stuff too, but it sometimes is very slow with that. Like, it was doing that when I was actually playing that game of chess. I thought you could do that at least. Maybe not on here. Yeah, I would have to, let me actually look if there's something public domain maybe on here. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to show it when I'm using it. This book is great on Kindle. What, are they going to say it's not great? No, this book sucks on Kindle. Also, you're using Kindle. Why the fuck doesn't this work? It wouldn't let me search. Okay, search Kindle. Let me see. A soul of fire never dims, for his Kindle as will. A good RP, in-character RP quote from Dark Souls 2. What was for dinner today? Or you mean yesterday? Because it's the morning for me now. It was some kind of a chicken thing, fast food chicken. What was I saying? Like, public, would it actually say it in this category anyway? Public domain book, search store. But then you wouldn't need much of a store for that because they could be free. Refine. Yeah, so like you're trying to tell me public domain agent's book. So let's just read this. Fuck it. Well, wait a second. How are you going to charge for something that's public domain? Isn't that the whole point? I'm so confused. They should be free at least. Yeah, there's a public domain chess book. Let's actually look. Public domain. It might just mention the term somehow, public domain, but it's not actually public domain. Or I would have to just look up on Google to be sure, because then I wouldn't have any hesitation. Chess history and reminiscences. Buy for free. Read now. Okay, let's try this one. I'm assuming it's public domain because it probably said it, but let me actually, like, we should be able to zoom in on this, right? Keeps doing font size. So it should say it's not copyright protected, or at least it's expired by now. 1892. So this is my level of play. Is going to be stuck in the past. We'd have to zoom in a lot to actually see any of this, though. What will be for dinner today? I'm not sure yet. Probably some other fast food like it always is. Let's see how much I would actually have to zoom in to do it. But this is the problem. See, you can't write on it. You have to put a note. That's the dumbest thing. This is the whole point. This would be the selling point. Oh, I can write over the book if I want. But then you have to get the stupid sticky note and then put it there and then write it on the sticky note inside the thing. Can you not zoom in any more than this? Like, make it as big as fucking possible. Like I'm blind, because otherwise I really can't read it. The following notice of chess, shortly after the death of Dr. Zuckertort, add materially to an increasing appreciation of chess among the working classes and help good work on. Weekly Dispatch, June 24th. I don't know what this is, just like articles written about chess over time. Yeah, this will totally be what it is. ASMR book reading, chess studying. If only there was one that was a little better, like, we'd have to find one that's actually going to tell you what to do. The 3 Indian traditions. No, the only Indian thing I want to hear about is the King's Indian, my favorite opening, just by one of those that I do by default. Progress of chess. Wait, how did you just do that so quickly? I didn't mean to open that. Yeah, if only you knew how far it was actually going to progress. Where Stockfish ruined everything. Opening theory killed chess. And the Botez sisters trampled over what little was left. Let's see here. Chess history and reminiscence. I love what they do, though. Like, they have GM Hammer commentate over their games, or Anna Cramling has her mother do it. Like, that's really a sad commentary. I'm not saying she's like forcing her to do it or that Pia doesn't want to do it. But, like, you're one of the first women grandmasters in history, and now you're reduced to doing commentary on 2,000 FIDE games of your cloud chasing daughter, who's not even trying to be as successful at chess as you are, even with millions of dollars made, and even with all the life that you put into it. Like, there's got to be a form of disappointment in that. Like, you're not going to actually try to play at the highest level or do what you did, even with more advantages and more technology and stuff available. Oh, you're playing Helldivers? I should play Helldivers 2, actually, since I played Helldivers 1 at the whatever, because that had come out. So I wonder how clear this actually is. I'll have to watch it back. But whatever, that's good enough for now anyway. See you tomorrow.